everyone. It's good to see you all. I believe all the board members are here and I can see you all on the screen, so thank you. I think we should open officially this board meeting. Today is November 4th, 2021. Welcome everyone to the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Max Disposti. My pronouns him is. I'm the board chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Just before we convene, I would like to remind everyone that it's present. The board is a consumer protection agency that is charged with administering and enforcing the board laws. Where protections of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protections of the public shall be paramount. The meeting today is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Government Code Sections 11133. And I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues of the day, and the meeting's moderator will open the lines as seen appropriate. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes per agenda items today, except, of course, for the petitioners, which have a different time. The moderator will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during the meeting, and the moderator, I think now, yes, we're ready for the moderator to provide the audience with instructions on how they might participate during the meeting and the appropriate items and links to click. Moderator, thank you again. If you could reintroduce us to the pressy. Thank you.
Certainly. So good morning and welcome everyone. I'd like to remind, before we get started, I'd like to remind the board and committee members and staff who are not speaking to mute their microphone. If we detect background noise, we will possibly either remind you or simply mute your microphone. During the public comment sessions, what I'll do is I'll open up the Q&A feature of WebEx, and you'll see the logo in the lower right-hand corner of your display. Or if you're on a handheld device, you might have to click through the 3 dots icon to get to the Q&A. And you'd click on that Q&A logo and type the word comment and send that out. And then we will recognize you, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comment, and we'll give you a 15-second warning. And that should be the extent of our instructions. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, pretty much.
Up here, I'd like to establish a quorum.
Oh yeah, I was going to call that, Christina, but thank you. You never know, we might be able, it's on the list of the next thing to do now. So Christina, please establish the quorum, and for our fellow board members, if you can also share as you share your presence, if you're a licensee or a public member, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Max Disposti.
I'm here, public member and board chair.
Christina Wong.
Here, LCSW member.
Crystal Anthony.
Are you a member?
Deborah Brown.
Here, public member.
Ross Ehrlich.
Member.
Susan Friedman.
Member.
Diana Hurwitz.
Here, LPC member.
Justin Huff.
LMFT member.
Chris Jones.
Here, LEP member.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Here, public member.
John Sobet.
Good morning, here, LMFT, and my pronouns are he, him.
Wendy Strack.
Here, public member.
Yvette Willis.
Member.
And we have a full board and a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And before we move on, I just want to make acknowledge, we will do that more formally tomorrow in our public sessions. We do have new board members, so we welcome you today, but tomorrow we're going to be a little bit more in depth about your appointments and who you are, so you'll be able to speak to the public as you wish. But I just wanted to acknowledge that the presence of new board members today. I would like also to, after we took the quorum, I think we can move to the first item on the agenda. As a reminder, the board might not discuss or take action on any matter raised during the public comment sections, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda on the future meetings. Each commentator, if there are any, will have 2 minutes. Are there any comments first from our board members for this public comment sessions? If there are anything to be shared or anything you would like to share with the public at the moment? I don't see any. Okay, then. Moderator, can we see if there are any public comments, please? Thank you.
I've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx. So if you click on the Q&A icon, you'll be able to type the word comment and send to all panelists. And I do see that we have a request for comment from a user identified as Pang Cha. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome. And Pang Cha, have you gotten your... Oh, there you are. You are unmuted. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Peng Cha Vang, and I live in Merced. I'm a social worker with ACSW, and during COVID-19, I lost my job, and it was hard for me to find a job. And a lot of people are affected by COVID-19. Sometimes people have kids, and kids have to come home, and they had to do school from home. And so I have some coworkers who lost time from work, and they had to stay home for their kids. And, I have some coworkers who were affected by COVID-19 and was positive, and they had to take time off work, And so people are impacted by COVID-19, and some people lost their jobs, some people are homeless. And what I'm requesting is that this board be active and you respond, and that you extend our time to earn hours. We're working to earn our hours. And I'm asking that you extend it. 6 years is not enough for some people. And, during COVID-19, we saw that the fees were raised to renew our license every year. And you can't just respond by that way. You have to help us. You have to find ways to help us and make it easier for us because we're suffering. And I hope, and you're on the board, so you have the power to put this on the agenda. So please put this on the agenda, that how can we respond in a way to help make it easier for us to earn our license? And even if you have to reduce your fees, reduce your fees. You can't just respond by doubling your fee. The fees didn't just increase by a few dollars, it increased. Thank you.
Moderator, just for the sake of record, as I share here, I don't know if it was me, but I missed a few part of that delivery. So I just want to make sure that was properly recorded, because at the first time, at the first inquire and request, I really didn't understand. It didn't come through. So I wonder if there is a way for our public member to repeat just at the very beginning when they say, I'm requesting, and then it went blank. I don't know if it was just my issue, but it looks like everyone else had the same problem. So can we do that, please?
So give Pang Cha one more to answer. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
And we apologize. I'm sorry to have to ask you to repeat. It just really didn't came clear, especially the beginning of the request. It just didn't come clear. So thank you so much for being here today as well.
Hi, my name is Peng Cha.
Thank you,
Can you hear me
Peng Cha.
now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Peng Cha. I live in Merced, California, and I am a social worker, ACSW. I'm trying to earn my hours towards licensure. And during COVID-19, I lost my job, and it was really hard for me to find a job. And I'm requesting that you respond and help the other social workers who are trying to earn their hours. A lot of my coworkers had to take time off work because their children came home and had to take school at home, and they couldn't go to work. I have some coworkers who got positive for COVID-19. They had to go to get to the hospital. They had to take time off work. I have some coworkers who, you know, like they lost their jobs, they lost their homes. And so because of this, people have been delayed in earning their hours. And I'm asking you to extend the period, the deadline of earning hours towards our licensures. I do understand that BBS has increased the price and their fees for just renewing our license for the year. And so, you know, it's unacceptable that the fees were increased not by a few dollars, but drastically increased. And it's not acceptable that the BBS doesn't respond in a way to help people during COVID-19. And you sit on the board and you have the power to put this on the agenda, and that you must be proactive in responding to COVID-19 and helping us earn our license. And that you should respond in a way either to reduce our hours or to reduce or extend the deadline or something. Give us some kind of relief, because we are suffering.
Thank you for taking
Who
the
lost their
time.
homes, who lost their jobs.
Oh, sorry, I thought you. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to hear that again. I didn't come through the first time, so I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moderator, are there any other comments, public comments?
No, I see no other requests for public comment. I can close that feature if you're done.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe now we can move to our agenda items number 3 for today, which is suggestions for future agenda items. I can definitely start from the board if there are any, excuse me, from the public first and then from the board. So moderators, we can open again and see if there are any other comments in regards to this agenda item.
Certainly. I've reopened the Q&A feature of WebEx. So if you have a suggestion for a future agenda item, you can click on the Q&A feature in the lower right corner of your screen, type the word comment, and we will be unmuting you in the order the questions were received, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. We'll leave a moment for people to locate the Q&A feature and type the word comment. And we do have a request from Peng Cha. I will send you your request to unmute your microphone.
I want to request to put this on the agenda to extend the deadline to earn hours towards licensure in response to COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. If there are not any public items on the agenda, we can move to the board.
Yeah, there are no further requests for comment. So
Okay,
I'll close the
thank you.
Q&A feature.
So I'm asking my fellow board member if there are any comments or any idea about any possible future agenda items. I would like to say something, even in from the previous comments that we received. I just wanted to share to the public, that to the new board members that are here, is that we continue to have plenty of sessions in regards to the restructuring of the fees. We had done this in the past few months. We put it on the agenda. People came and spoke. The leaders of the associations did so. I'm not saying it's never enough, right? Because the concerns are taken, and actually there were plenty of legislative efforts that the BBS and the state of California has taken to actually support the licensures and the timing, and including the postponing of the fees. So I'm not saying that should be sufficient by any means. I hear the concern of the public, so I don't mean to disregard it. To the contrary, actually, I invite our comment, the person who was commenting, I apologize, I can't see the name at the moment, to continue to participate. We have a lot of subcommittees where a lot of decisions are made, where the invoice input of the public is really seriously taken in consideration. So I wanted to share that just for the public and the sake of the public, of knowing that this board is hearing the concerns, that we took actions in regards to those. And we will continue to do so. You know, we are absolutely and not just inclined, but dedicated to support our licensees, and those are becoming so, but also while protecting the interest of the public. Saying that, I believe, I don't know, again, if there are any comments from my board members, I think we can move, moderator, to the second. Perfect. Did we miss the first 30 minutes? No.
I'm afraid we did. My apologies.
It's okay. But I think we can move to the second sessions of our board meeting today, which has to do with our petitioners. For those of you that are listening, this is the time where our judge, today we have our judge, Van Rooyen. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Judge, it's good to see you back. And at this point, the judge will take over the meeting in regards to our petitions that are listed. For the petitions that are in the room, you are going to be called the same way you've seen it listed in the agenda item. And then for each petitioner, we establish a break between petitions, and then we will vote on those petitions at the end of the day, I mean, in this afternoon in closed session. But again, Judge, it's all on you, and thank you again for being with us. And I'm here if you need me at any moment.
Thank you, Mr. Disposti. It's always a pleasure sitting with this board. Thank you so much. My name is Judge Van Rooyen. For everyone, I'll introduce myself once we go on the record again, but I'm with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I'll be conducting the petition hearings today. Do we have our first petitioner on yet, Madam Moderator? Mr. Hooper,
Yeah.
I think?
Yes, we do. We have an attendee identifying as Hassan Hooper.
All right, Mr. Hooper. It's Mr. Hooper. Do I have that correct?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
You are very, very faint, sir. I almost can't hear you at all. So I don't know if you can somehow turn your volume up or get closer to the microphone.
What about now? Can you guys hear me now? Is that better? No?
It's still very, very faint, sir. I'm concerned the board members and myself won't be able to hear you very well. Are there any further adjustments you can make?
Okay, let me turn off this Bluetooth. I'll make the adjustment now, okay? Can you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. While we're waiting for Mr. Hooper, and Mr. Bell, are you still with us? Okay, terrific. And then our court reporter, Ms. Leitz, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry. Can you see me?
Okay. No, I can hear you just fine. Thank you, Ms. Leitz. Thank you. I just want to make sure you're ready once we have Mr. Hooper's audio issue resolved.
Absolutely.
Can you guys hear me now?
Much better, Mr. Hooper, much better.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to go formally on the record in just a second. We'll call the case. Just for the board members' benefit, I know you've already established a quorum, but for each petition, I'm going to ask you to state your appearance, and that's because there's a separate transcript that's prepared for each petition hearing, and there's a record of who heard the petition in terms of later decision making. So just bear with that. Other than that, we are ready to get started. Ms. Leitz, are you ready for us?
Your Honor.
Thank you so much. All right, let's go on the record. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. We're here to review various petitions this morning, and we will take them in the order they appear on the agenda. The first one is the petition for early termination of probation filed by Hassan Hooper. That's spelled H-O-S-S-O-N, Hooper, H-O-O-P-E-R. That's OAH case number 2021-100286. And the license number is LMFT 79118. My name is Wim Van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter this morning. Today is November 4th, 2021. The matter was noticed for hearing at 9 a.m. It's approximately 9:21 a.m. presently. We are conducting this matter via WebEx video and teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 11133. Will all the members of the board please identify themselves for the record, please?
Maybe Christina can call the roll call. If
I can actually, yeah, oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you so much if you can, Ms. Kitsamura.
I can do that. Thank you. Max Disposti,
here,
Christina Wong, Deborah Brown,
Here.
Ross Ehrlich, Susan Friedman,
Here.
Diana Hurwitz, Chris Jones, Justin Huft, Kelly Ranasingi,
Here.
John Sovet,
Here.
Wendy Strack, Crystal Anthony,
Here.
Yvette Willis. Did I get everybody? Am I missing one? Okay, we have a full quorum for the hearing.
Thank you so much. I do find that the quorum of the board is present. Thank you so much, Ms. Kitamura. And may I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Yes, Judge. Deputy Attorney General Kevin W. Bell, on behalf of the Attorney General of the State of California.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. And then finally, last but not least, Mr. Hooper, I know we were informally introduced, but could you please state your full name for the record?
My full name is Hassan David Hooper.
All right, good morning to you again, sir. Welcome. I'm glad you're here today. Just in terms of how this hearing will proceed today, so first I'm going to ask the Deputy Attorney General to just orient us to your particular case history by providing us a procedural history as well as introducing the petition packet into evidence. And then after that, Mr. Hooper, you will have an opportunity to make a presentation under oath to explain why you believe your petition should be granted. You're also welcome, in addition to your own testimony, to call other witnesses to testify. It's not mandatory, but if you have any, you're welcome to do that. And then yourself and any witnesses would be subject to questioning by the Deputy Attorney General as well as the board members. The board today is particularly concerned with your performance on probation and your rehabilitative efforts since your discipline was last imposed. You can assume that the board has read and reviewed your petition packet, so there's no need for you to repeat everything that's in there, but you can certainly highlight or emphasize any portions you think would be appropriate. And then once we are done with the hearing today, the board will go into a closed session later this afternoon to deliberate on the petition. So you won't be receiving a decision today, but you will receive it at some point in the future in the mail. Do you have any questions I can address at this point, Mr. Hooper?
No, not at this time, Judge. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And just let me know if anything arises in the course of the hearing. Mr. Bell, I'll turn it over to you to introduce us to the procedural history of the case and introduce the evidence packet. You can do that in whatever order you would like, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge, and good morning to all the board members. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but it's intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that you, the members of the board, have adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. The petitioner was issued a licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 on or about February 19, 2014. And that license was in full force and effect, relevant to the charges that were brought against him. The petitioner was convicted of the following. On July 14, 2014, he is convicted of a misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol. On September 29, 2010, he was again convicted of a misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol. And on January 2nd, 2001, he was convicted of passing a completed check with intent to defraud. On March 3rd, 2004, a statement of issues was filed in case number AP-2004-16. The order issued a marriage and family therapist registration to the petitioner. That registration was immediately revoked, and he was placed on probation for 3 years, effective on March 11, 2004. On August 11, 2007, Mr. Hooper successfully completed probation. The grounds for this action was his January 2, 2001 conviction of passing a completed check with intent to defraud. Then on October 14, 2015, an accusation was filed. The order resulting from that disciplinary proceeding issued a marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 to the petitioner. The license was immediately revoked, and he was placed on probation for 5 years, effective July 28, 2016. The grounds for that action was his July 14th and September 29th misdemeanor DUI convictions. On July 5th, 2018, a petition to revoke probation was filed. The petitioner violated several conditions of his stipulated settlement and his probation. It was ordered that Mr. Hooper's probation be extended by 1 year, which would have been effective to November 21st, 2018. Now, the petitioner was on probation, but that probation was tolled from July 28, 2016 to January 10, 2018, and again from July 3rd, 2018 to March 4th, 2019. The projected end date of his probation is currently September 21st, 2024. Now, Mr. Hooper petitioned for early termination of probation on March 5th, 2020. The board denied his request, however, modified his terms. It was recommended that he find a new therapist, that he engage in body fluid testing, which was reduced to 1 time per month, and it was recommended that he look into other dependency support programs. Thus far, it appears that Mr. Hooper has complied with his probation. As to his psychological examination, that was completed in November 16, 2016. He has been deemed safe to practice with the recommendation that he participate in Al-Anon or a similar program for individuals with family members who are addicted to alcohol, and supervised practice for at least 12 months. It appears that he's submitted his psychotherapy quarterly reports. He completed his supervised practice in October 2019. He completed his remedial education in July of 2017 and has been compliant in his biological fluid testing program and dependency support program. Also, Mr. Hooper has paid all of the cost recovery that was required and has otherwise complied with all the standard terms and conditions of his probation. At this time, I'd like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, the judge, and the petitioner. Exhibit 1 includes the case summary, the petition for early termination of probation, and all supporting attachments, the original stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, the notice of hearing, and the certification for licensure. Judge, I would move those into evidence.
Mr. Hooper, do you have any objection to admission of Exhibit 1? That's your entire petition packet that Mr. Bell just summarized.
No, Judge.
All right, thank you. No objection heard. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. Since the burden is on the petitioner, it's now his opportunity to address the board. I may, at the conclusion of his presentation, have some questions to ask for him. But for now, that's up to Mr. Hooper.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bell. Mr. Hooper, so now, as I mentioned earlier, isn't your opportunity to make a presentation in support of your petition. Would you like to testify on your own behalf?
Yes, Judge. I just would like to thank the board members and everybody here for
All right,
giving me
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure. It sounds like you're starting your presentation, and I do need to swear you in before you do that. Can I do that real quick, please? If you could raise your right hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I didn't know.
No apologies necessary at all. All right, your right hand is up. So do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Wonderful. Mr. Hooper, again, I just want to make the importance of the oath is so that we can rely on everything you tell us. So that's why I wanted to make sure you were sworn in before you made your statement. Again, I'll just remind you, no need to, you can assume the board members will read and consider everything in your packet, but there may be portions you want to highlight for us, or you might want to supplement or add some facts that's not in there. So now is your opportunity to do that. Once you're done, Mr. Bell may have some questions for you. And after that, some of the board members may have questions for you, because although I'm the judge presiding over the case, it's actually the board members who will be deciding your petition, not the judge. So that's why they are going to might be asking you questions as well. All right, sir, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to thank the board and everybody here for giving me the opportunity to hear my petition today. That's all I wanted to say at this moment.
All right, and that's fine, sir. And I'm going to turn to see if Mr. Bell has certain focused questions for you and the board members, and then I will circle back to you at the end if there's anything that comes to mind in light of the questioning. If you want to add something, I'm happy to let you do that after the questioning. Mr. Bell, do you have questions for Mr. Hooper?
Yes, Judge. Good morning, Mr. Hooper. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Mr. Bell. Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, you did have a couple of DUI convictions in the past, correct?
Yes, I did, sir. 2.
Did you ever attend any AA meetings as a result of those convictions?
Yes, sir. I was ordered by the board to attend AA meetings. I've been attending meetings twice a week. So I have been attending meetings. I have a sponsor who I've known for a while and has really helped me work through these through my AA and with my problem with alcohol, and it's been a very good support system with me. So I have been attending meetings, yes.
Excellent. Have you been working your steps?
Yes, I have been working my steps. One of the steps that's have been really hard for me that I had to learn to deal with was learning that I had a problem with alcohol. So I had to accept the responsibility that I have a problem with alcohol based on my behaviors and things that I was doing. And then also I had to make amends to myself. There was a lot of shame, guilt, anxiety, frustration. I had to make amends to my children, to my family. I wasn't able to be the father that I needed to be. I wasn't able to take my daughter to school, take him to practice, soccer practice. I wasn't able to drive to work. I had to catch the bus. So I have been working through the steps. I have worked through the steps, and with the help of my sponsor, which I didn't have before, I have a sponsor now, and it's really been helping me out. And I developed new coping skills by working the steps of AA.
Excellent. Have you also attended Al-Anon meetings as well?
I have attended Al-Anon meetings as well. It's been very supportive and helpful attending the meetings. Of course, there's alcohol abuse in my family structure. So I've been dealing with that as well, having to support people through Al-Anon and going to those meetings, and also talking to a lot of members of my faith-based community with dealing with the alcohol addiction as well.
Which of those 2 programs have you found more beneficial to you, the Al-Anon or the AA?
Actually, I think they've both been very beneficial, Mr. Bell, based on the fact that I was brought up in an environment where I seen drugs and alcohol within my community, within my family structure, and then also with AA because my alcoholism and dealing with alcohol and how it's affected me, my life, my family, my career. So I kind of put them both as very important, very helpful to me, at least going through this process and moving forward. So maintaining my sobriety is my biggest concern right now. I've worked really well and with my therapist, my sponsor, and my family, and I have a really good individualized treatment plan, and it's been really working for me, and I've developed these new coping skills, and they've really been working for me.
Excellent. Okay, you said a moment ago that one of the most difficult steps that you had, that you experienced with AA was recognizing that you have a relationship with alcohol. Which step was that?
Well, just getting the power of recognizing that I had a problem and I had to submit. So I had to recognize that I had a problem, whereas the past, I didn't recognize that I had a problem. I was in denial about my alcoholism and didn't want to accept it. But that has, I had to give up the power. My higher power has helped me get through this process. And so I had to recognize that I do have a problem based on my behaviors and the patterns in the past.
Okay, but specifically, which step is it where you have to recognize that you have an issue with alcohol? Do you recall which?
Well, it would be the step where I had to do a personal inventory of myself, where, based on my behaviors and my patterns and things that I was doing, I had to really recognize and take inventory of how alcohol has impacted my life, my family, my career, and the things that I've been going through. So for step one is just know that I'm powerless over alcohol and gave up on my power, and know that there's a higher power to help me get through this process of the alcohol.
Excellent. And which step are you up to now in working those steps with your sponsor?
Right now, I've been through all the steps, but I continue to go through them. The ones that I'm really working on is trying to make amends with my children, my family. That has really impacted me a lot,
And which step is the making amends? Which step is that out of the 12
I think that's the number 7, sir, if I'm not mistaken.
Excellent. If the board decides to terminate your probation early, will you continue doing the 12 steps on your own?
Absolutely, sir. I will continue to go to AA meetings and do the 12 steps because I think it's very important and I need to do that. I definitely will continue to go.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bell. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the board members, and each petition, I'll start with the A's and work my way down to the Z's, and then for the next petition, we'll do it in reverse order so that there's no particular pattern, or it's not the same people speaking first or asking questions first each time. So if I have it correct, I think Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Of what we have asked you to complete or do, what additional resources have you developed on your own to create better healing for yourself?
Well, through therapy, I've done a lot of self-caring activities, meditation. I've done a lot of exercising. I do walks. I listen to music. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. So I'm trying to just be mindful of any internal triggers that I may have, that I may go through. So I do a lot of massages, if anything, but a lot of exercising. I go walks to the lake, to the river. So I'm developing new coping skills of doing more self-care than I was doing in the past. So just a lot of activities, spending time with my family, prayer. Like I said, without my higher power, I wouldn't be able to get through this. Reaching out to my friends, sponsors, therapy, deep breathing, self-help books, things of that nature. So I'm just trying to do a lot of self-caring things I didn't do in the past.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the petitioner?
At this point, I don't. I just like to say good morning and thank you for coming to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And Judge, that was step 9 that I was making amends. I got that wrong with step 9. I want to recorrect that with Mr. Bell. He asked
Oh,
me which one I'm working on.
thank you so much, Mr. Hooper. Appreciate the clarification. All right, next I have Mr. Disposti. Do you have any questions?
Good morning, Mr. Hooper. Good to see you back. And we read everything about the case. I don't know if you care about sharing with everybody the work you do in terms of the population that you're working with and what drives your passion, and because I think it's important for people to know. So if you don't mind, thank you.
Sure. Nice to see you again, Mr. Disposi. The work that I do, I've been working with the County of Sacramento for over 20 years now. Currently, I'm working doing drug and alcohol assessments. I help people get into treatment for inpatient or intensive outpatient, residential. So we're kind of like a gate entryway into getting into treatment. So my job is to do assessment to assess the level of care for clients that needs treatment. What I try to do is try to to meet clients where they're at, and just try to be a beacon of hope. I can definitely relate to the relationship with addiction. So I try to just be very, very diligent and be very supportive, because sometimes these people and everything's, especially going through COVID now, we don't have that interaction of face to face. It's all through via phone. And our client population that we work with is pretty acute. So I try to be a beacon of hope and just try to help better problem solve and try to navigate them through the process of where they're at. So I definitely can relate to what they're going through. So I try to empathize and understand and not disclose, not trying to disclose my own personal information, but just also be try to be helpful and try to guide them, because sometimes they feel like they lost. And I know exactly what that feels like. It's a lot of shame, embarrassment, and guilt, and which I have also dealt with. So I just try to help and see what ways I can help the clients.
Thank you. That truly answered my question. So thank you so much. Thanks for being here again, and thank you for the work you do. I know working in Sacramento, it's a lot of, in any city, as a matter of fact, it takes a lot of strength, a lot of effort. So thank you, Mr. Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hooper.
That's okay. That's okay. I call Cooper a lot, so.
All right, Mr.
No further questions. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Disposti. Mr. Ehrlich, do you have any questions for petitioner?
Yes, Judge, I do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Hooper. Thank you again for being here and for your testimony, and for all the work that you've done leading up to this. I have a couple questions for you. Was just kind of going through your history here in the packet that you submitted, and I had first question is, I was wondering if you've had any of your convictions expunged, any of the convictions expunged in the past.
Well, Mr. Ross, I haven't had them expunged. I was hoping to try to do that in the future. Hopefully, if I get past these steps and be able to get off this probation, I can use this as a leaping stone to gather all my documentation and be able to present that to the judge to get this expunged. But that's on my list to do. But I haven't been able to do that because I feel like I'm still in this process where I'm at now. I'm trying to work towards that. If I'm able to move forward, I would definitely look into that.
Okay. I was also wondering, I saw that in 2018, there was the extension of probation. There was some elements of your previous probation that were violated. I was wondering if you could maybe speak on that and kind of explain maybe what happened or what were the circumstances leading to that.
Are you talking about the time where I was told and untold?
No, it says on June 5th, 2018, there was a petition to revoke your probation based on violating certain of the stipulation.
I think I might have had a positive test for alcohol at that time, if I'm not really certain. I think that may have been the incident where I test positive, so I had to get it revoked. Yeah, I think, yeah, that was that incident. I had one positive test at that time.
Okay, so it was just the one positive test during the probation.
Correct. And then it also was a tolling period too, where I had to untoll because of that. Where I had to get supervision, so I had a hard time getting supervision. I've been told twice because I had supervision and then I lost the supervision and then I had to regain supervision again. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's been a very challenging road.
Okay, no, I understand. Okay, I think those were all of my questions. Again, I appreciate your work that you've done and your testimony today.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Ehrlich. Ms. Friedman, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Your Honor, I do. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Hooper. Thanks so much for being here and for the work that you're doing, which we all know is so important. I'm wondering, though, you have 3 years left on probation. It's a long time. And I'm wondering, what are the kinds of things that you think you could do in those 3 years, or that you don't need to do in those 3 years?
I think as far as this has been a very big financial burden on me. I'm barely keeping it together financially to pay for these things. So the probation, paying for the petition, paying for the probation reimbursement costs, the counseling therapy. So I think within the next 3 years, by not having to test and pay for the testing, a lot of anxiety for me, just trying to make sure that I don't make any mistakes by calling in every morning, to make sure I'm in compliance with my compliance with the regulations that the board has set forth for me. So I think that will help and release a lot of anxiety and stress from me. But overall, as in regards to my sobriety, nothing is going to change. I'm going to continue to work on my sobriety. I'm going to continue to work with my sponsor. My sobriety is very important to me. I'm going to continue doing the things that I have done because they have been working for me. And also therapy. I'm going to continue therapy, maybe not once a week, but periodically as needed. In the past, I had therapy. And I had a therapist, but the recommendation of the board, I had to get rid of that therapist. And then when I petitioned last time, I had to get rid of that therapist. So this is my third therapist. So moving forward, I will always continue to keep doing what I've been doing because it's been working for me. And in the past, I didn't have these coping skills to deal with these stressors that was leading up to this event, especially with alcohol. But I think I will continue to do these things. The only thing would be the financial burden, paying for it, and being petitioned or meeting the conditions of the board to do so. But other than that, I will continue to keep doing what I've been doing because it's been really, really working for me.
That's really good news to hear. I'm curious because the work that you're doing is very demanding, and of course the pandemic has totally made it much more complicated for everybody. But I'm wondering if, because you say you try to keep everything about yourself private, but do your clients know about your own problem with alcohol?
Well, when I talk to, go ahead. I want you to finish your question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I don't, when I talk to clients, they may ask me, do I have any experience in this field? And I tell them, yes, I have experience in this field. I have personal issues within my own family structure and within myself, but without disclosing too much. I tell them that, I too can understand the problems of addiction. And in so many words, I tell them I'm certified, book certified, and also certified from just experimenting and abusing symptoms. But I don't get into I try not to disclose too much because I try to keep it real personal, professional with the clients, but let them know that I'm here to help them and try to keep the focus off of me. But I also talk to them that way and let them know that I too can relate and also have struggled with my own addictions without disclosing too much. Yes.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense because, one of the requirements of probation is that your clients know that you're on probation. I only have one very quick last question, and that is, do you find that dealing with your clients on telephone is as effective as it was in person, or do you hope to go
No,
back?
yes and no, because it seems like now that we're doing it through telehealth, we're able to reach more clients, particularly with the population that I work with, because a lot of clients may not have transportation, they may not be able to want to come down, they may, in the past, before pre-pandemic, we'll have clients say, I've been trying to get here for over a month now, but just want to be able to do it, whereas now they could just pick up a phone and do it. So it's been a little bit, even though we've been hit with the pandemic, we've been able to reach more clients. And then when you're talking to clients over the phone, it's very interesting because you just got to meet them where they're at. I helped the client out where she was changing the tire. And I asked her if she wanted to continue. And, so she's like, no, we need to do this. And we got through the assessment while she was changing the tire. So it's very, it's never a dull moment. It's very fulfilling and it's rewarding too, especially when, you have clients that come back and ask for help or name drop. They name drop and sometimes they may think that it might get them in quicker or sooner, but yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, Ms. Herwick, do you have any questions for Petitioner?
Hi, Mr. Hooper. It's good to see you here. I
Hi.
have a question. Looking at your history, it looks like the 2 DUIs you had were after celebrating big events, right? Getting a house, passing your MFT license. I'm
Yes.
wondering what you do now when good things happen and it's time to celebrate. How do you celebrate?
I celebrate without alcohol, Diane. The way I celebrate now, I've been able to learn other ways of celebration that doesn't involve alcohol. Like I said, I try to be mindful of my internal triggers. I have a good relapse prevention plan that I implemented that really has been working for me. But I learned that there's other ways to celebrate that doesn't involve alcohol. Um, Although I try to watch what I'm eating too, because I do like cake, cake, pie, ice cream, donuts. I'm a big fan of donuts. I call them do nots because I do not need to eat so many. But there's other ways I can celebrate, but I also got to be mindful of that as well. So you're absolutely right. It was a celebration, but then at those times, it was also some depression and sadness that I was dealing with at that moment as well, because things wasn't lined up with my family and and although it was a good time, it really wasn't because I didn't have my family that I was working for um, along with me on that ride. It was more like a solo ride. But absolutely, I have learned better self-coping skills to deal with that doesn't involve alcohol.
Thanks very
And I've been
much.
drinking a lot of Red Bull too. I got to cut back on the Red Bull and coffee.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Hooper. That's it for me, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Huft, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hooper. In the last 2.5 years of your sobriety, I'm wondering if you can identify any changes to what your work looked like with your clients, if at all.
What do you mean by any changes? Could you elaborate on that, Mr. Huff?
Yes, thank you. So I think that one of the primary concerns of the BBS is that the quality of work will be impaired if someone's under the influence of drugs or alcohol. You've been sober for 2.5 years, so I'm wondering if you can identify any changes, positive changes, hopefully, that came out of
Yes,
2.5 years
yes.
of sobriety.
Well, basically, since I've been with my sobriety, to me, I think I've been a more keen, astute clinician, been able to identify what the clients are going through and been able to help them and guide them and give them a lot more support. One thing that I always implement when I'm doing these assessments is to have everybody go get therapy because I'm a big fan of therapy. And when I'm doing these assessments, a lot of these drug and alcohol problems seem to be some kind of underlying stuff to deal with some type of depression, anxiety, or trauma that a client may have been through. So, I really try to push therapy and ask them, have they ever been in it? Have they ever tried? I have some clients before saying, I don't like therapy. I can't do therapy. I don't like therapists. And then I say, hey, well, you're talking to one now. And then, they're like, well, you're different. I said, there's no difference. You're talking to a therapist. I'm glad you're reaching out. But those are some of the things tried. I think I become a more acute and to learn better therapeutic skills and working with my clients. My goal is to try to develop personally and professionally. I'm trying to be the best that I can be. So that way I could be a better clinician, then I could be a better person, a better father, a better friend. So my goal is just to try to be the best that I could be. So I think by working with my clients, I think I became more astute and been able to use more therapeutic skills, put more therapeutic skills in my little repertoire bag that I use when I try to help clients.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Huff.
All right, Mr. Jones, any questions for the petitioner?
Honor. Just a couple of questions, Mr. Hooper. I do appreciate you being here today. It's nice to hear your story. As you're fairly new into your sobriety, it's only been a couple of years. Reading through your packet, I was moved at how not attached, that's not the right word, but how strong your family connection is and how much of a trigger that was for you in this process. So I'm curious as to like how that's going, if you've been able to kind of reconcile with that. Also, what are your current triggers that you struggle with and may want you to go back and drink, and how are you managing those triggers?
Good question, Mr. Jones. So basically, for question number one, like I said, I made amends with my family members, particularly with my daughters. They're older now, so I was able to have a conversation with them. They know what I'm going through. They've been very supportive. So I have a very good relationship with them. Since they're older, I have a 19-year-old and she's going on 30, and then I have a 27-year-old daughter. She thinks she's 40. So it's almost like having two wives because they really watch out over me. So it's been a very good process of dealing with them. I have a very close relationship with them. So, and then moving forward, my triggers, the way that I've been able to deal with it in therapy is that I have a really good treatment plan where I can monitor my anger, my feelings, the frustrations, and try to make sure that I have a good coping skills to back those up. Like I said, some of the things I do is I talk about the stuff in therapy with my therapist. Been able to just kind of like slow down, not be so impulsive, to kind of slow down, stop, think about what I'm doing, and to make sure that I just don't react off of my emotions or frustrations or my behavior. So I just been really trying to do that. My other triggers. Those are pretty much it, but the way that I cope with that, I try to listen to myself, listen to my thoughts, my internal feelings. So I just been really working hard in therapy on that as well. I have a really good treatment plan laid out, and I've been following that, and it's been really working for me. Did that answer the question, Mr. Jones?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Ranasinghe, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
No, I have no questions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sovek, do you have any questions?
Mr. Hooper.
Good morning, Mr. Sovek. Nice to see you again.
And yes, let's meet over donuts, magical food. So I wanted to ask you a question to help me have just a little bit more insight into, how you're kind of working through all this right now. And so if you had a client that you were working with, and they had a little bit over 2 years sobriety, and they were like, hey, thanks, all the stuff you've offered me has helped a lot, but I think I want to move on and do it on my own. What kind of insights, conversations might you have with them about that choice?
I probably will have a discussion about, do they have a plan? What is their plan moving forward? Like I said, my plan, and do they have a relapse prevention plan? Do they have a sponsor, a support system, someone that can support them if they need help? Do they have a sponsor? What has been working for them? And I will wish them the best of luck. And if they need help, to come back, and we'll be here for them. But hopefully that won't happen. But I will probably ask them those couple of things.
Okay. And then just because you've talked about how you're not necessarily transparent with clients about your particular journey, and I'm sure you have clients that start attending 12-step programs in the Sacramento area, not an enormous community. How do you respond when you run into a client at a meeting, or have you run into a client at a meeting?
I have. I have run to clients at a meeting. When I see them, I just respond to them in a normal response. Hey, how you doing? How things going? How's your life? How are you doing in recovery and things like that? And I do want to clarify that I do tell clients that I have struggled with addiction, but I may not get into what drug or choice it was. So I do tell them that I have struggled too, but I try not to get all devolved into, oh, I struggle with this, because I don't want to make it all about me when the client's calling for help. But I just, I do tell them that I have struggled with addiction as well. But I have ran into clients in meetings, and a lot of them have thanked me and for helping them. Because sometimes I talk to a lot of people over the phone, and it's nice to meet with the face to face sometimes, to see the person in person rather than over the phone. Or I might see their names and never saw them in person before. And then when they say their name or their voice, I might hear their voice. I'm like, hey, your voice, hey, are you? And then we might connect like that. So in that regard, yeah.
And when you're in a moment like that, you shared with me what you'll do for the person you're meeting. What process goes on inside of you? Do you have any reactions or feelings when you run into someone like that in that meeting situation?
No, well, the process feeling for me is that, hey, I'm glad to see that person, and that we're both here trying to get help. This thing is not easy, trying to overcome this addiction. I tell clients and I tell myself, that there's a slogan, one day at a time. I say over here, we take it 1 second at a time. Second leads to minutes, minutes leads to hours, hours leads to days. So, so when I see somebody in person, I always try to self-empower them and let them know, hey, I'm glad to see you here. How you doing? Kind of check in with them, see how things are going. Hopefully things are going well, but it's always good to see somebody when they're in a meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to be real specific then. Do you check in with yourself as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to check in with myself. I do that every day. I check in with myself. That's one of the self-coping skills that I've developed as going through this process. Because if I'm not right, how can I help somebody else? So I always do a check-in self. When I get up in the morning, I pray and thank God for waking me up. I pray that everything's going to be okay. And I just embrace the day. So I do a lot of self-check-in with myself to make sure that I'm doing okay, how I'm feeling. If I'm not feeling well, I try to deal with that feeling work with the coping skills that I've developed to be a better person, professionally as a person, as a clinician, and just I'm trying to be the best version that I can be. So I'm working and growing every day.
Perfect. I think we all are. Thank you so much for sharing.
And if I see you, we'll have a donut.
We'll go to Marie's.
Oh, that's top notch, Mr. Savi.
All right, Ms. Strack, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, I think most of my questions have been asked by other board members. I just have one to kind of help me kind of bring everything together kind of as we close out this sessions. I was on the board when you came before us last time, so I'm wondering if you could share between then and now, what has really been the most significant transformation for you since we saw you last?
To me, I think the most significant thing is just recognizing that I have a problem with alcohol. I think before, when I came to you guys before, I was in denial about it. Maybe, I didn't want to recognize that. So I had to really recognize how this has impacted my life, my family, and my career. So I think what has significantly changed is that me being open to deal with this addiction of alcohol, and I've learned better coping skills now. Whereas before I didn't have them. I really didn't have them. And when I left you guys last time, I just went back. Of course, I was upset and I was angry more at myself, but I just looked and said, hey, I have more work to do. And I still have more work to do. Even if I get released from probation, I'm still going to keep working and growing because, as I said before, I'm just trying to be the best version that I could be. And with alcohol and dealing with that, that was preventing me from being the best person that I can be.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
All right, Ms. Willis, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Do not. I just want to thank Mr. Hooper for sharing his story, and I like your positive demeanor. I think that really kind of sets the tone as you try to keep working in your self-help. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. And then last but not least, Ms. Wong, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Your Honor. Mr. Hooper, very nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, Ms. Wong.
Yes. So, so I was in your last petition hearing, and I'm very glad that Ms. Strack actually asked you, that question, because that was exactly, one of the things that I want to check in with you. And so, so I went back to look at your last proposed decision, the decision, after the hearing. And so I want to check in with you of some of the, more specific changes. Okay. So first question is when is the last time you drank alcohol?
It was March 5th, 2019.
So, okay. So that was, so I remember, so compared to what you mentioned in the last petition hearing, you said that you don't celebrate, sobriety date. And so now are you celebrating the sobriety date?
Absolutely. That's how I know that date now. So I do celebrate dates because I think it's very important. It's almost like a birthday. And I think, based on all the hard work and the things that I put in, I should celebrate it,
Right. Okay. Very good. The other thing is that last time you talk about that you talk about that you did not believe that you have an alcohol problem. Right now, so I know you didn't mention that your alcohol problem was you basically now you admit that you have an alcohol problem. And, so I really feel that, I want you to elaborate a little bit more. How did you come to that conclusion? What make you change your mind that, There was a lapse of judgment, and now, oh, I have a problem. What made you have that, change your mind?
Well, when I left you guys last time, that was a clear indicator that I had a problem. So, um, talking to the board and listening to you guys, it's like, hey, you have a problem. And also through therapy, therapy has really helped me work. I've gotten a new therapist, and our main focus has been on eliminating alcohol and working on those thoughts and ideas, and also the frustration, the disappointment, and the anger. So I guess, by walking away last time and getting the decision denied, and then also the disappointment within myself, not really, I had to really look in the mirror and do a self-assessment of myself. And just based on the history, it was pretty relevant that I have a problem.
Right. So that was a pretty good impetus, to encourage you to really look hard at yourself. So, so I'm glad to hear that, the board's petition last time is actually functional for you to
It was like running into a wall, Miss Wong. It was like running into the wall. It woke me up. It was very impactful.
Good, very good. So I'm glad, that is, that's very, to me, that is important. And the other thing I want to check in with you, is about, that, when Mr. Jones, I asked you about the triggers. And so I want to go a little bit deeper. So, it seems that, you do know and recognize that, you have a tendency to be impulsive and, have a tendency to, reactive. Do you have an insight about what caused you being so impulsive and so reactive?
Like I explained to Mr. Jones, that I have to really just stop and slow down. I've been able to just kind of reassess things and slow down and quit being so impulsive. I guess my impulsiveness, just to avoid high risk situations, to redirect my actions, my thought process, and just slow down and take things in, maybe not respond to certain things. I'm learning to be a better listener now, because sometimes, that takes a process of slowing down, being able to listen to another person talk. But I've been doing a lot of internal work within myself. I do a lot of self-talk therapy with myself, um, thinking, my cognitive thoughts of just trying to slow down and deal with the process, stay with the process and see what that's like, rather than just reacting and doing it quick. That has not worked for me in the past, and I learned that. So now I learned to slow down and kind of think things through before responding.
So can I safely say that, that's, right now you're at the stage of really trying to manage, the behavior, when you see that you have a reactionary reaction or impulsive reaction, you stop and think and then try to find out, trying to manage, that particular tendency.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I do. So I'm actually mastering it now, because I've been dealing with this since a childhood. As a kid, sometimes I would say things and get in trouble for it, but it'd be truthful things, stuff that I felt that wasn't right, or even with in the settings of friends, if something wasn't right, where no one would say nothing, to be dead silence, and sometimes I'll just blurt it out. That doesn't make sense, bro. But so now I'm learning to just kind of, like I said, just kind of slow down, think about things before I react, and just kind of feel the process, and really use some cognitive thought process of making sure that I just slow down and be in the process before responding.
good. So I really would love to see that, you're able to get some insight, apart from, just knowing that, that, okay, I have a good plan. I know how to manage my behavior. I know how to manage my thought. But I think, when, being an alcoholic, one of the things is like, that, understanding, about the root cause. What really has been, driving you to have that sort of impulsive reaction. I think that is a really important thing, when we try to, make sure that, the therapists have a safe practice, because the bottom line is that, we do not want, that any of the therapists, in the therapeutic session, really kind of guided, your behavior, kind of like, start to influence, the client. So that's, that would be my hope for you. And so at this point, I don't have any further question, Your Honor.
Let me just check in with the rest of the board before, if anyone else had a burning question for the petitioner that came to mind, you can just state your name and speak.
Yes, Judge. This is Deputy Attorney General Kevin Bell. Sorry about that. I did have some follow-up questions, but I have to say that Board Member Wong has stolen my thunder and asked everything else that I was going to ask. So the questions were very good. I really appreciate that, Ms. Wong.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was actually going to turn to you as well, Mr. Bell, but that covers that. Any other board members? I just want to make sure everyone had their questions addressed.
It's Crystal Anthony.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would utilize a specific term for you, Mr. Hooper, and the term is credible messenger.
Thank you.
Your experience, it makes you an expert, because you actually have lived experience of going through something, and that is a strength in this career. So I really admire you, and even just the ability for you to share a little bit with your clients. There is that term is very much used in this world, and I always say it to people with lived experience that are formerly incarcerated or previously in human trafficking or whatever the topic might be. That's a strength. So know that your downs are a strength in this, and so I admire you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any other board members' questions? All right, I'm not seeing any nor hearing any. Mr. Hooper, I just want to make sure, I did promise you that if there was anything in light of the questioning that you wanted to add at the end, I'd give you an opportunity. Was there anything you'd like to add that we haven't already discussed that you think is important for the board to know?
Thank you, Judge. I just want to thank everybody here. I really appreciate you giving me the time and the effort to come forth and petition with my probation. So I just want to thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity to do so. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. And just out of abundance of caution, no additional witnesses or documents that you wanted to present. There doesn't have to be any, but I always like to ask just to make sure.
Oh, Judge, I presented it, submitted everything that I need to at this time, I think. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. Then that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed. The case is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. And Mr. Disposti, I'll turn it over to you as to how long you'd like to take a break for and when we come back.
Thank you, Judge. Usually, I think we might need 10 minutes to the next petitioner, which I believe is Mr. De Gabriel Fuentes. And yeah, if we can reconvene at 10:30, that would be great.
Terrific. We'll see you then.
Thank you, everyone.
Ms. Leeds, are you ready to go on to our next hearing?
You see me?
Yes, I can see you now. I can see you now. I think there's sometimes a little bit of a lag from when you turn your camera on or off. So sometimes there's a couple seconds, but yes, I can see you and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm ready.
Mr. Desposti, are we waiting for any other board members? Is everyone back? I don't want to proceed without.
I'm looking at, hold on, I'm getting the full screen here, so I'm making sure that I can see everybody. It looks like we are all in. Yes,
All
we're
right.
all in.
Perfect. Then I will take us on the record, Ms. Leeds, if you're ready for us. Thank you so much. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. We will take our next petition on the agenda today, which is the petition for early termination of probation by Dagoberto Gabriel Fuentes. That's spelled D-A-G-O-B-E-R-T-O, Gabriel, G-A-B-R-I-E-L, Fuentes, F-U-E-N-T-E-S. This is OAH case number 2021-100-277, and the license is LCSW 88009. My name is Wim van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this petition hearing today. Today is November 4th, 2021. Hearing was noticed for 9 a.m., but we're hearing multiple petitions, so it's now approximately 10:33 a.m. We're conducting this matter via WebEx video and teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 11133. At this point, I'd like the board members to identify themselves for the record. If Ms. Petitioner, if you could help us out again with a roll call, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay, I can do that. Up here. Okay, Max Desposti,
Yes, here.
Christina Wong. Christina
Here.
Wong. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
here.
Crystal Anthony. Deborah Brown. Oh, I'm sorry. Deborah Brown left at 10:27. She will not return. Ross Ehrlich.
Here.
Susan Friedman.
Here.
Diana Herwick. Justin Huff.
Here.
Chris Jones. Kelly Ranasinghe.
Here.
John Sovet.
Present.
Wendy Strack.
Here.
And Yvette Willis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Again, Ms. Kitamura, and I do find that a quorum of the board is present. May I please have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Deputy Attorney General Kevin W. Bell, on behalf of the Attorney General of the State of California.
Thank you again. Good morning, Mr. Bell. And then for the petitioner, I know we were informally introduced. If you could just state your full name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Dagoberto Gabriel Fuentes.
All right. Good morning again, Mr. Fuentes. And I just see your video is back on because I was going to tell you I couldn't see you, but I can now.
Oh.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
All right. So in terms of how we will conduct this hearing today, I don't know if you've ever had a petition hearing before, but in any event, first thing what will happen is I will ask the Deputy Attorney General to introduce your petition packet and to provide us with an orientation about the background and procedural history of your case. Mr. Bell here is not here today in an adversarial capacity. He's here just to represent the interests of the people of the state of California and to make sure that the board has an adequate record from which to make a decision. After he concludes his presentation, you will have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why you believe your petition should be granted. You will also have the ability to call other witnesses to testify if you choose. It's not mandatory, but if you'd like, that's a possibility. And then you and any such witnesses would be subject to questioning by both the Deputy Attorney General and the board members. Reason for that is that although I am conducting the hearing as the judge, it's actually the board members who will be deciding your petition. So that's why it's very important they get to ask you any questions they may have. The board today is mainly concerned with your conduct that you on probation and your rehabilitative efforts to date. So it's not really to relitigate everything that happened in the past. that provides some context for why we're here today, but the focus is on rehabilitation and your conduct on probation. You can assume that the board members have reviewed your petition packet, and so you don't need to necessarily repeat everything that's in there, but you can certainly highlight or emphasize any portions that you think might be helpful or appropriate. And then after we conclude the hearing today, the board will go into a closed session to deliberate on your petition. And so they will make a decision at that time, and you'll receive that decision in the mail in the future. So you won't get a decision today at the hearing. Are there any questions I can answer at this time before we get going with the substance of the petition hearing? Mr. Fuentes.
No question. Well, actually, one question, just in case I forget later. Once I am done with this right here, am I mandated to continue staying on this website?
If your question is if we conclude your particular case and we submit it for decision, at that point you are free to leave. But you just have to wait till we're done with the entire hearing, which includes your testimony as well as questions by the Deputy Attorney General and the board members. But you do not need to stay for the subsequent petition hearings. We have 2 more after you today. You're welcome to attend them if you like, but you don't have to, sir. Does that make sense?
Thank you for the clarification, of course.
No problem. Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, then at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Bell, to introduce the petition packet and provide us with a history of this case, and you can do that in whichever order you would like, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Judge, and members of the board, and Mr. Fuentes. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. As the judge mentioned, my role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. A little bit about the history here. Mr. Fuentes was issued his Associate Clinical Social Worker registration on January 30th, 2015, and he was issued a licensed clinical social worker license number LCSW 88009 on or about February 28th, 2019. Petitioner's conviction history is as follows. On February 6, 2018, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI. On June 15, 2005, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a felony DUI, which was later reduced to a misdemeanor. On August 11, 1995, he was convicted of another felony DUI, which was also later reduced to a misdemeanor. On January 10, 1995, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor driving on a suspended license, which was later dismissed. On September 20th, 1994, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor driving on a suspended license, which was also later dismissed. On March 4th, 1994, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor driving on a suspended license, also later dismissed. On June 23rd, 1993, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor driving on a suspended license, also dismissed. On January 2nd, 1992, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI, which was also later dismissed. And on August 1st, 1990, Mr. Fuentes was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI, also later dismissed. Each of those dismissals was done pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4, which provides that once a defendant or once a probationer has completed their probation, they can have the underlying charge dismissed. So he was convicted of those, they were later dismissed. But there is an extensive history regarding driving under the influence of alcohol. An accusation was filed against the Associate Clinical Worker registration number ASW 65397 on October 11, 2018, under case number 200217001930. A statement of issues was filed against his application of licensure on October 11, 2018, under case number 20020190000742. The board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which revoked the registration number ASW 65397 and issued license number LCSW 88009 on probation for 5 years with all optional and standard conditions in terms of the probation effective February 28, 2019. On February 28, 2020, the petitioner's therapy and bodily fluid testing terms were informally modified. Therapy sessions were reduced from weekly to biweekly, and body fluid testing was reduced from 52 times per year to 36 times per year. As to Mr. Fuentes' compliance on probation, he is requesting early termination of his probation. He has completed his psychological evaluation back in June 28, 2019, and has been deemed safe to practice. That evaluator recommended that Mr. Fuentes meet with an additional specialist for 6 months, and Mr. Fuentes complied. He is compliant in his psychotherapy quarterly reports, his dependency support program, biological fluid testing, supervised practice, and also all other standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports and reimbursement costs. He completed his remedial education December 20, 2019, completed his relapse prevention training on February 13, 2020, and all costs were paid as of July 19, 2019. At this time, I would like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, the judge, and the petitioner. Exhibit 1 includes the case summary, the petition for early termination of probation, and all supporting attachments, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, the notice of hearing, and the certification of licensure. Judge, at this time, I would move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Fuentes, do you have any objection to admission of Exhibit 1? That's your entire petition packet that Mr. Bell just summarized there.
I do not, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. No objection heard. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. Since the burden is on petitioner, it's now his opportunity to address the board. I may or may not have questions for the petitioner based on his testimony and based on the evidence that's been submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. So, Mr. Fuentes, now is your opportunity to testify in support of your petition if you choose to do so. Would you like to do that?
I would, Your Honor.
All right, so if you could raise your right hand, I will swear you in before you get started. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much. You can put your hand down. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, there's no need for you to necessarily repeat everything in your petition packet. The board members have reviewed it, but it's often helpful to highlight or emphasize any things you might want to emphasize that you think is helpful, as well as to add or supplement if there's additional facts or things since you've submitted your petition you want to add, you're welcome to do that. Once you're done with your testimony, Mr. Bell may have some questions for you, and the board members may have some questions for you. So with all that said, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Deputy Attorney General Bell. I appreciate that. I must confess that hearing those charges is very humbling. Just to relive who I was, because the DUI say one story, but what I lived was another story. And so it is very humbling. It's also very empowering to realize that now here I am in a whole different level and in a whole different capacity. And it's just quite a review there. Thank you for that. So yeah, I did submit something in the pamphlet, and I'm going to assume that everybody took a look at it and, kind of understands where I'm coming from. But there were a few things that I wanted to emphasize that I didn't include in there. And that's about my recovery, because I did take it seriously. I want to say that I'm not one of those people that if I drink, I'm going to lose a job. Or if I drink, I'm going to lose my family. I mean, I'll do that. But see, I'm the type of person that if I drink, I'll probably die. And it's and that's the type of person I am. I want to save everybody the trouble of asking me if I think I'm an alcoholic, because that's a very definite yes. However you define the term, I do fit under alcohol dependency, okay? Now, and having said that, I do take my sobriety very seriously. I want to show you what I've done. I was ordered to do a relapse prevention group by the Board of Behavioral Sciences. And I was told that there was no length of time, it just had to do a program. It could have been a 3-month program. And there were those around, but I chose to do a 1-year program because I thought that's what I would be best. Okay, I want to make sure that what happened to me, that I drank that day and drove, never ever happens. The 6 months that my sobriety date is April 5th, 2017. And before that, it was August 1st, 2009. So I lost a lot when I lost that, because, when I'm being in AA, our sobriety date means a lot to us. And losing that was very, very demoralizing back in 2017. And I spent the next 6 months in quite depressed. I didn't drink again, but I was quite depressed, and I was just very demoralized. And that's when I decided that I needed to do more than I had been doing. Because obviously, if I drank again, what was going on? Why did that happen? So I took advantage since the board put these sanctions on me, and I went with a 1-year recovery program. The court ordered me to do, I believe, a 3-month DUI program. I requested to do an 18-month program. Now, granted, the last 6 months is just once a month, but for that whole year, I was going every week. And those are things that I imposed on myself because I wanted to make sure, quite honestly, my primary concern that I was going to live. That was the most important thing to me. Of course, family and job and all those things are great, but if I'm not alive, what good is everything? I also grew up, my trauma comes from a dysfunctional household where there was violence, on a daily basis. And so it's a very toxic, dysfunctional dynamic. And invariably, I would go back to my parents' house. I was working on my graduate degree, and where I was living, they decided to sell the house. So my dad says, well, just come back and live with us. And I did. But ever since I moved out of there, which was in October of 2017, it's been a whole different thing. I don't have that stress from the dysfunction of the family dynamic. And, relationships at home with my parents have improved. That also led me to stop smoking. I wasn't a heavy smoker, but I was a smoker. And it was always a constant struggle to continue, to quit, to not quit. I didn't like smoking, but I was addicted to it. 5 cigarettes a day, it may not seem like a lot, but it was that struggle of not smoking more constantly. The stress was always there. Since I've managed to free myself, which was in November of 2017, that has helped me too. I've implemented exercising, self-talk, and those are the things I've done towards my recovery and towards me assuring myself that something like that will not happen again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fuentes. And again, as I always offer petitioners, after the questioning by the Deputy Attorney General and board members, if something else jumps to mind at the end, I'll give you another opportunity to add anything if you recalled something you neglected to mention. All right.
Thank you,
Mr. Bell, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes. So, Mr. Fuentes, thank you very much for coming here today and presenting, your request to the board members. I do have a question, and that is, you stated just a moment ago that your date of sobriety was April 15th, 2017. Is that correct?
April 5th.
April 5th. I'm sorry. I misheard. So the last date that you drank was on April 4th. Is that correct?
When I was arrested, yeah.
And that was the arrest for the DUI. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, have you been participating in AAs on your own?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's for life. Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Have you been working the 12 steps?
I do. I do work this 10 on a daily basis, step 10 on a daily basis, because, that's what releases the stress, the buildup of not holding anything in.
Sure. And do you have a sponsor?
I do.
Yeah. And how long have you had this sponsor?
I've had this sponsor since 2009.
So you've been with the same sponsor for quite a while.
Yes, I have.
Excellent.
Yes.
Now, I do have to ask, there were a series of driving on suspended licenses between 1993 and 1995. Your license was suspended because of the DUI, correct? Or the
That
DUI?
is correct. Yes.
Okay. And you had a series of DUIs, no fewer than 5 between 1990 and 2018. Was there any one of those arrests or convictions that really sort of lit a light bulb for you and really made you realize that you had a problem with alcohol?
No. Back then, no. And I'll tell you what it was back then. Every time I got a DUI, it was, oh, I shouldn't have been driving on that freeway. Or, oh, I shouldn't have been out late at night. Or, oh, I shouldn't have taken those streets. It was everything except saying, oh, I shouldn't have been drinking and driving. I had no self-awareness back then.
And was it the last one? You said that your sobriety date was the day after the last DUI. Was that the wake-up call for you?
No, sir. No, sir. Can I elaborate?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, full disclosure, so you know what my story is. In 1999, I became homeless, and I was homeless for 2 years. During that time, I was drinking heavily and extensively. On September 7th, 2001, I went into a coma because of that. And I was in a coma. When people say, where were you on 9/11? I know where I was because I was in the hospital in a coma. And after that is the first time I ever had sobriety of over 30 days of my life since I was 13. I went to a rehabilitation center. I was there 2 years and 9 months. I relapsed, and that's when I got the DUI in 2004. Back then, when I first got sober and came out of that coma and I experienced sobriety, that's when I realized that being sober felt good, that I was hurting myself, but there was still a point where there was something missing. In other words, there were too many feelings coming out. Like I tell my clients, the good thing about when you quit drinking and using drugs is that you're going to feel. The bad thing is that you're going to feel, because that's the truth. You know, there's a lot of emotions in there that have never been processed, have never been resolved. So they're pending. And if you don't know how to process them, they're going to be very uncomfortable. And it's going to be, and see, as an addict or someone who's dependent, we know how to fix that discomfort. We know it's just a swig away, you know. And so, yeah, that's what was going on back then. So my wake-up call was in 2001.
Okay. But you did get other DUIs during that time period after your wake-up call.
Yes,
What
2004.
Yeah, 2004 and 2018.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it was about those two incidents where you fell off the wagon, where you relapsed? What happened to you there? Well, let's take it one at a time. What happened in 2004?
Sure, absolutely. 2004, it was what I call a classic rookie mistake in sobriety. Hey, you know what? I've got almost 3 years. That drinking that I used to have that was a problem, I got it by now. So I'm just going to drink like a gentleman. You know, we say that in the AA. Hats are off. Well, no hats off to me because I couldn't drink like one. And within a week, I was drinking heavily again. And that's when I got the DUI.
Okay. And then in 2018, what happened there? What was there some life stressor that caused you to drink again, or was there something else?
Well, stressors are the cause of relapse, in my opinion. You know, regardless of what they are, and it's a intent or an attempt to cope with something that's discomforting. And what happened in this last DUI, the last one that I got, was I was doing a strong program. I was in AA, but I wasn't going regularly like I should have at this point. But I don't like to make excuses, because it sounds, when I say what was going on, it sounds like I'm making an excuse, and I'm very conscious not to make that, because the problem is me, you know. But what was happening back then is that I was straight out of grad school. I was thrown into a supervisory position, and I tried to take a lot on. I tried to change things. I tried to advocate for people. I tried to advocate for clients. I think I had a lack of boundaries, to be honest. And I think I was trying to do too much. And one day I said, you know what? I'm just going to have one drink to take the edge off. And this is the result. I was arrested. I had more than one drink, by the way. You know.
Yep. No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bell. I'm going to turn to the board members now, and I'm going to go in reverse order alphabetically this time. So I believe you're up first, Ms. Wong. Do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Thank you so much, Judge, Your Honor.
No problem.
Kind of like went off somewhere. So Mr. Fuentes, thank you very much for appearing in front of the board. This is not easy because, you know, now we're like listening to your story and you have to retell, you know, your past. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So what a story you have, you know, from being homeless, you know, to nowadays, you know, just, you know, the testimony, I mean, the evidence that you submitted, you know, that, you're earning a good amount of, dollar, and the change, from like a very low salary to now. And so I can really see that, that you have, make a lot of the change. However, in the therapy world, we know this is all you. And so this is all you. The change is wonderful, but at the same time, sometimes, people still have to kind of like juggle, to kind of like balance their, their past. So, being said, I wonder now, you have that 14 years of sobriety, right? And I'm from like 2004 to 18. Was it what was the length of time, for that period of sobriety?
I believe I stated, I'm sorry if I didn't, my previous sobriety date was August 1st, 2009.
Yeah, okay, 2009. And then, until, you got your DUI, so
Yes.
that was like that 2018, right?
2017.
17, okay.
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, so you have that 8 years. 8
Almost
years is a
eight,
long
almost
time.
eight. Yes.
Yeah, almost 8 years. So I'm thinking that, I'm glad that you talk about your stressor. Once you got out of grad school, you were doing too much, right? Any insight why, it doesn't seem like it's that, problematic. But at the same time, when we deal with, people, possibly, with co-occurring issues or, or like you say, the stressor, right, is always the cause. So I want to just check in with you. That period of time when you were doing so much, why was that? Why did you do that?
I felt it was my duty to do that. I just felt that I had a team that was depending on me, that wanted, they said, hey, we're not earning enough. I heard them. I was working at a CCTRP at that time. And that's a custody. Actually, I opened the second one in Southern California in Santa Fe Springs. And that's a custody to community transitional reentry program. It was for women who had 2 years or less left on their prison sentence. They came to our facility. They wore an ankle monitor, and after they were paroled, after 6 months they were allowed to go out and look for work. And when they paroled, they took everything they had and their job and everything, and it's a fantastic program. During that time, that was my first experience with providing individual therapy in a paid position. Well, and it gave me an opportunity and a privilege to work with women, and I saw and I started to understand how much trauma a woman suffers, which is disproportionate to males, And I have 2 daughters. Whether there was some counter transference of those emotions is very possible. I'm not going to definitively say that's what it was, because I believe that when we have maladaptive behavior, recidivism, there's more than one thing involved. So that may be one of the reasons why. you know, and we were understaffed at that time. I think, and my inability to take a step back and say, you know what, I can do what I can do, and this is it, because if not, my health is going to be compromised. I didn't have that, you know, and now that I think back, actually, Ms. Wong, right now, you prompted me to think back of this. One of the first signs of being overwhelmed or burned out is high enthusiasm, you know, and right now, thank you for that clarity. We learn something every day. You know, and that now that you made me say it, that could have been it. I wanted to take the world by storm. I was a brand new social worker, late start in life because of all my stuff. So, and this is what happened. Nowadays, I tell people around me, this is what I tell people because I supervise also. And I said, you know what? I hope there's nobody in here who's going to give me 100%. I'll take 90, because if you give me 100%, that means you have nothing left for you. And that could lead to bad things. So thank you for that. Made me emotional right now thinking about it.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, and that's exactly, the insight, that we want to hear. And, and it's really not to rehash, that what is right or wrong, because Mr. Fuentes, I think that, since you do supervise staff, and so, and yet, I think the most important thing is that you're able to maintain, a healthy relationship with them. So now, speaking of that, so tell me a little bit about your supervision, with the staff, what type of staff that you supervise, and can you just give a little more description?
Sure. Right now, actually, they brought me, I work for an agency by the name of Kedron. It's in South Central Los Angeles. It's an FQHC, and the clinic is only about 5 years old. It's a primary care clinic. I was previously working with Kedron, but at their AB 109 program, which is a probationary program. A lot of three strikers there. They brought me over to the clinic because it was a requirement for their HRSA, for the federal grant. I think it was a HRSA grant. It's a HRSA grant. And that's why they brought me over to start the behavioral health department. I have a couple of psychologists that are part-time that I supervise, and I also oversee, I'm going to say oversee, the case manager department. And basically what we do is we provide services to underserved population, people of color, those at high risk. I feel like I haven't answered it completely. Do you want to prod me along?
Do you supervise any clinician or like those psychologists? Do you supervise and give them like clinical hours?
No, I cannot. No. I supervise in the terms of, if something goes wrong, this is who they come to. This is who the insurance company is going to come to. This is who CCALIC is going to come to. This is whoever the body may be. I'm the one that's going to take it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have no further question, and I will reserve all these questions for my board members to ask. Thank you so much, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wong. I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Fuentes, so it sounds like the supervision you described is not clinical, it's administrative, essentially. Is that
absolutely? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I oversee. I prefer to say oversee.
Understood. Thank you so much, sir. All right, Ms. Willis, I think you're up next if you have any question for the petitioner.
Mr. Fuentes, I do. Thank you for being here today. I have two questions for you. So the first question is, how do you cope with your urges, to drink? I know you use the word dependency, and it's been off and on, and, there's always going to be stress, different levels, but there's always going to be stress. So when you feel that urge of stress, how do you cope? What do you tell yourself? How do you do that?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I love talking about it because every time I talk about it, I learn a little bit more about myself. Thankfully, the urge to drink is almost non-existent, because when I do feel that stress, and just let's say that thought of like, how would a drink help me right now? I do what we call I play that tape all the way through. Before, I believe earlier in the 90s, well, no, probably after that, is when I used to think like, okay, what's it gonna do? Okay, it's gonna relieve my stress. And I would stop there. Okay, so now what I do is, okay, it's gonna relieve my stress, but then I'm gonna want another one. And then I'm probably gonna drive. And then I'm probably gonna lose my job because I'm not gonna go to work if I'm drinking, because I'm responsible. If I drink, I won't go to work. So then I'm gonna be without a job. I'm probably gonna end up homeless, and I'm probably gonna go to jail. So I play that tape all the way through, and by the time I'm halfway done, whether there's still stress or not, definitely I know that alcohol is not going to solve that problem. If anything else, I live by little cliches, little mantras, and everything. There's no thing so bad that a drink can't make worse, and that's what I believe. I exercise regularly. I try to practice what I preach, because I notice that if I say something, I like to hold myself accountable. So if I tell people, exercising is good for us, I want to do that. I'm still a little overweight because, I heard somebody like donuts, I like chocolates and stuff like that. But that's besides the point. And exercising is fantastic. That self-talk, I self-talk all day long, and it's like I feel very comfortable doing that now. I don't see like there's anything wrong with it. Diego, how should you answer? Because I call Diego's what I go by. I go, Diego, how should you answer that? Okay, if you're going to say this, can she take that as, in a wrong way, and it might hurt her feelings? I try not to sound judgmental, I use that for myself too. I'm trying to be gentle with self also. That's what I try to do.
Okay, thank you. And the second question I had was, outside of your supervisors and therapists, who is your support system? Like personally, is it a family member? Do you have somebody outside of like a professional that you can rely on if you ever feel like things are going to go out of control?
I have a list of phone numbers from people that I kept in touch with from my cohort, that I can call at any time. They know my issues. It's probably about 8 of them. And I have my sponsor that is going to be in my life forever. Family support is important, although my family dynamic is dysfunctional. Even with my daughters, I mean, and I don't want you to think it's toxic, because it's not. It's still, there's a lot of hurt with my daughters, and even though they don't voice it, I know it's there. I can see it and stuff. I would say they're a support system at certain times, but not in times where there might be substance or substance related, or I have urges. For that, I have a sponsor that I could talk to about that. There's a couple of people at work that know my story, and we just I bounce things off of them here and there. There's another very good friend of mine who's also a therapist, and she has been a pretty solid rock in my life also.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. Ms. Strack, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Thank you for being here. In your 2017 relapse, you mentioned you had one drink and then drove. Was it just that single occasion, or you only had one drink, or had you been drinking before that, and then there was also the DUI incident?
No, actually, no. I had not been drinking before that, and I started with one drink. I had more than that. I blew a .16, so I had about 4 or 5 drinks before the day was over. But as far as the episode, yes, it was. It was the only time I had not drank before that. I did not drink afterwards, because I got arrested. And I truly believe that was probably what stopped me from continuing to drink.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sovek, do you have any questions for Mr. Fuentes?
I do not. Thank you so much.
All right. Mr. Ranasinghe.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Mr. Fuentes, in your petition, you request termination of probation or termination of testing, therapy, and supervision, is there a particular dimension of probation that is very problematic for you?
Well, it's no, not a particular dimension. Probation is problematic for, well, there is actually, but probation is problematic because there's expectations at my work that I start supervising people, you know, and I fear that my position might be in jeopardy. They've been very patient, but you know, it's a business, and they want to be able to offer that. So that is the biggest obstacle. The only other thing that I can think of is that I have to check in every day. Okay, so I have to compete with people in the East Coast. Now, when I'm checking in over here at 3:30, they've been up for 3 hours, you know, so I can't get times. So it's small inconvenience, but that makes it a little difficult.
I got it.
Mhm.
And my only other question, Mr. Fuentes, is you know, I've heard you testify, and really you've been very educator-like in your testimony. You show a good command over your recovery. You were able to address aspects of your testimony without getting shaken. I sense a great deal that you hold yourself very accountable for your actions. How are you also kind to yourself?
How am I gentle with self? One of the things that I tell people, because I believe that if we change the way we think about ourselves, we can change who we are. And, you know, coming from, well, let's just say that the people I work with also have, and the people that are my patients have also been through similar things in their life. And one of the first things I talk to people in therapy, and I also tell this to my team, is that from here on in, no more, oh, how stupid, why did I do that? No more of that, you know, oh, what an idiot, why did I, you know, why did that happen? No, from now on, it's going to be, what did I do wrong? Okay, no, it's going to be, it's like, okay, I'm going to take this as a learning experience. And from here, what can I do next time so it doesn't happen again? And I apply that to myself because sometimes I think in the past, specifically, I was very good at giving solutions and giving good advice, but hey, why wasn't I taking any of that? You know, it was pretty good stuff. Why wasn't it applying to me? And now I try to do that. I try to practice what I preach. And I try to do that with my partner at home, you know, so we can build a strong household where we don't add these stressors to ourselves so that it becomes dysfunctional. Because if you're happy at home, you're going to go out the door and you're going to portray that to other people that you come in contact with.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jones, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Questions at this time. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Huft, any questions?
No, thank you for your forthcoming and very insightful responses.
Thank you, sir.
And Ms. Herwick, do you have any questions?
Just want to say thank you, like the others, Mr. Fuentes. I appreciate you being here and being open and honest with us.
Thank you.
Ms. Friedman, any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. Thank you so much for being here. Can I call you Diego?
Please do. Yes, thank you.
It's a beautiful name. You've been very honest and upfront in your life story. It could be a book, obviously, but I'm wondering, your probation really isn't up until 2024. That's 3 more years. What do you think could happen to you more in those 3 years? Or why do you think you don't need those 3 years?
Okay. A fair question. I just want to say it's 2 years and 5 months, so it's closer to 2 years and 3. But I got you. What could happen then? And what might not happen? If I want to be objective about it, I think that anytime supervision, as well, I'll call probation, I'll use the word, but supervision, probation or supervision, anytime that's terminated, there's always the possibility that people may not be able to hold themselves accountable. You know, it may be that this is what's holding the person accountable, the fact that they'll get in trouble if they don't. So I think that, that applies to everyone. As far as me, as I'm concerned, I don't see what much can change, because my life, other than checking in and testing, is not going to change, because as I stated earlier, this isn't a matter of keeping my job. So, well, it is, but it's more of a matter of keeping my life. And that's the driver for me. I guess if I were to do another, extend the probation, it could serve me to possibly talk to other people who are in here that may be drinking or something, and let them know, hey, this can happen to you. Be very careful, Yeah, I'm trying to give a good answer here, and I think I'm having difficulty.
Well, no, you've given, I mean, is there anything really positive that you can point to, which is a reason why you need to be off of probation?
Why I need to be off? Primarily because my job wants me to be able to supervise ACSWs, and I cannot do so when on probation. That's the driver.
Okay, thank you. And you think that you can hold yourself to all these things that you've been doing up until now without the overhead of probation holding you to these?
I'm very confident that yes, I would be able to. Absolutely. I think I continue to grow every day. Every day continue to apply more things to me that are helpful and, well, not only helpful, but also that help me maintain that inner peace. That's so important, because I believe that if you keep stressors out of your life, you're going to be okay. Easier said than done. I understand that. And maybe not keeping stressors out, but learning to process them and take that power away from them. I'm confident that I would be fine without probation.
Thank you so much. And
thank
for
you
sharing as much as you have, and for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Question.
All right, Mr. Ehrlich, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
I just have one, and good morning, Mr. Fuentes. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
The DUI that occurred in 2018, are you off court probation for that one?
Yes, I am. I included paperwork in there. When I went to the courthouse, I requested the proof that I was off probation. And they said, we don't give that out. The only thing we can give you is a printout, because it's only 3 years from the date.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that is all the questions I have. Thank you again for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
My unmute button there. Mr. Disposti, any questions?
No, Your Honor. No further questions. I thank you, Mr. Fuentes, for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I think since we don't have Ms. Brown, Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions?
Excuse me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Mr. Bell, any additional questions from the Attorney General?
Thank you very much.
And let me circle back and just make sure none of the other board members have any supplemental questions. If you do, just state your name and go ahead.
This is John Sovek. I do have a question.
Please go ahead, Mr. Sovek.
So if I'm understanding your relapse and DUI after your 8 years of sobriety, you stated that it was partially based on you kind of overworking and taking on too many responsibilities. Did I hear that correctly?
Correctly. And I'd like to add also, if I may, that the inability to process those feelings is what caused it ultimately.
Okay. The reason I want to follow up with this is because you're saying your job is pressuring you to be able to supervise associate clinical social workers. As an LMFT who has done supervision over the years, it's basically like adding another full-time job to your life. You often have to be available 24/7 for late night panic calls. You have to be able to lead people through reporting issues. It is a lot of pressure. It's not just something you take on lightly. especially with the rules now, the number of supervisees that a person could take on, it makes it an even more intense job. And I'm curious, you talk a lot about, anticipating, seeing, walking down the pathway. How do you see adding on the huge, huge stress and burden of taking on supervision and managing that within this framework and not kind of following that same path that was part of your last relapse?
Mhm. That's a fantastic question. It really is. And thank you for giving me the heads up that it does take a lot to do that. At my position, I would not be supervising more than a couple of people from what I know. Now, all nonprofits are very subject to change very quickly. One of the things that I do have and that I will do is that I think my boundaries are much stronger now. When I feel like this is enough, it will be enough. Because I'm not beyond having to, if it came down to it, to go to another position because the demands were too great. I'm not going to put myself in the position where I'm going to risk my health anymore. I just can't, So to answer your question, I think my boundaries are much stronger and I would definitely limit what I can do.
Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, supervision is an amazing journey. And I, as a professional, learned so much from it. And just giving you a heads up, it is a ton of work as well.
Thank you for that. I mean it. Thank you.
I wanted to jump in.
Oh, that's Ms. Wong, right? Ms. Wong?
Yes, it's Ms. Wong. Yes.
Absolutely. Please go ahead. I just wanted to make sure your name, the court reporter knew who was speaking. There we go.
Yes, Christina Wong. So Mr. Fuentes, so I'm glad that, that's, Mr. Sovek actually, share with you that supervision is a really stressful job. It's fun, but it's also, it's a huge responsibility. So, my additional question is about if let's say that the board let you off probation today. So any terms and conditions or any, things that you have been doing that, you would like to maintain or not, or you get off probation, you're going to be done, since, your work is going to be so busy.
Oh no, thank you so much, Ms. Wong. And you know what, I'll always come first from now on because I need to be well. And no, my AA meetings are not going to change at all. The way I'm not going to check in anymore. But other than that, I still plan to stay in touch with my therapist, maybe once a month though, because, well, I do want that support. I do want that support. And I'm in a position where that's feasible to keep my therapist on once a month, definitely. Other than that, my lifestyle won't change completely too much. No, I still have to do what I have to do to take care of myself.
So, at this point of your life, you're not, and, dealing with alcoholism, you have so many years. So it really is about relapse prevention. So do you think that, maintaining the current lifestyle and also the practices that, you mentioned attending AA meeting and therapy would be enough to, to formulate this relapse prevention plan?
Well, as long as I keep a healthy state of mind, and by that, I mean, keep the positive self-talk. Self-awareness is huge because if you're not aware, then you can't do anything to stop it or change it. And so I need that self-awareness. Am I being triggered right now? Okay, let's say I do get upset, right? Because we're all humans, we can get upset. So let's say I do get upset and that thought comes in. It's like, okay, self-awareness. You're having a thought. Okay, this is a bad thought. Now, what are you going to do? How are you going to get past this? Process it. Is this worth it? What are you going to do next? Are you going to drink or not? Usually by the time I get there and I take up so much time thinking about things, that urge has passed. Like I said, they're very rare and they're not long lasting, but I truly believe that I can be caught off guard at any moment. And just like that, next thing I know, I'll have a drink in my hand. So that self-awareness doesn't take up too much of my time at all. It's it's a state I should be in regularly.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Fuentes. And Judge,
Thank you,
go
Ms.
ahead. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wong. Any other board members, if you just state your name and launch your question, that's fine. All right, I'm not seeing any hands and I'm not hearing anyone speak, so I'm assuming we're all good. Mr. Fuentes, I offered you at the beginning that if there was anything else you'd like to add at the end that you haven't discussed yet that you think is important for the board to know, I just want to give you a final opportunity to add anything if you'd like.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, I just want to say that thank you for your kindness and the way you received me. I appreciate it. It really does feel good. And I truly feel like I was before a distinguished panel. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. And then just out of abundance of caution, I just want to make sure no additional witnesses or documents that you wanted to testify or present today.
No, Your Honor.
All right, that's fine. Just making sure there's no compulsion, just making sure we had everything addressed. All right, then that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed, the case is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. And Mr. Desposti, I'll hand it over to you in terms of making a decision about breaks and all that.
So thank you, Your Honor. My suggestion, but I see all of you, so let me know what you think. We might do another with a break of 10 minutes. We might take on another petitions and then see where we are. If you want to take a longer break after the next petitions, kind of like for lunch. I don't want to impose any time to anyone, but so if you're okay, we can take 10 minutes break now, go to the next petition, and then we touch base where we are after that, and maybe we go for a longer break. Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine by me, and as you know, it's totally up to the board. I'm happy to
right,
whatever
yeah.
schedule you guys do, just as long as our court reporter gets a little break in between the petitions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I need to take that in consideration. So it's 11, almost 30. Let's say it's 11:30. So maybe we can reconvene 11:40 and for our next petitioner.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mr. Desposti. I'll see you all at 11:40.
Thank you.
Moderator, I will put Mr. Fuentes back into the attendees list, and we do have Christopher Bishop, the next panel.
We're good. I see everyone is on time, and we're ready to go, Your Honor. So yes.
Terrific. All right. So Mr. Bishop, in a second, we're going to go on the record. I'm going to call the case, and then I'll explain some of the process to you on the record and ask you if you have any questions. And I'll also ask you to state your formal appearance at that time. Okay. So, but we're going to go on the record now with the court reporter. Ms. Leitz, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I couldn't see your window, so I know you were probably thumbs up or whatever, but I didn't see it. Apologies. All right, let's go on the record. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. We'll review our next petition on the agenda, which is a petition for early termination of probation filed by Christopher William Bishop. That's spelled CHRISTOPHER, William, WILLIAM, Bishop, BISHOP. This is OAH case number 2021-100-274, and the license number is AMFT 111755. My name is Wim van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this petition hearing today. Today is November 4th, 2021. Hearing was noticed for 9 a.m., but we are hearing multiple petitions in a row, so time is now approximately 11:43 a.m. We're conducting this matter via WebEx video and teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 11133. Will all of the members of the board please identify themselves for the record, and if Ms. Kitamura can assist with the roll call, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, I'm here.
Christina Wong, Crystal Anthony,
Here.
Val Serlet, Susan Friedman, Diana Hurwitz,
Here.
Justin Hub,
Here.
Chris Jones,
Here.
Kelly Ranasinghe, John Silva,
Here.
Wendy Strack, Yvette Willis. And Your Honor, just for the record, I'm expecting Diana Hurwitz to exit the meeting right about noon or a few minutes prior to that. So just so you're aware.
I'm sorry, actually, it's right before 1. I should be good through this if we finish before 1.
Okay, thank you for that correction. And we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Herwick. I appreciate the clarification. So yeah, we'll try our best. We're not going to rush anyone, but we'll try our best. And if at the worst happens, then you won't deliberate on this matter if you didn't hear all of the testimony. Even without you, we do have a quorum. So I do find that there's a quorum in this matter. May I please take the appearance of the Attorney General?
Deputy Attorney General Kevin W. Bell, on behalf of the Attorney General of the State of California.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. And now the petitioner, could you please state your full name for the record?
Christopher William Bishop.
All right, good morning again, Mr. Bishop. Thank you so much for being here. In terms of how this hearing will proceed, first, the Deputy Attorney General will introduce your petition packet and provide us with an orientation about the background and procedural history in this matter. It's not meant to relitigate prior events, but it just gives us some context for what brings us here today. And then after that, the petitioner, you will have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why you believe your petition should be granted. You're also welcome to have other witnesses testify in addition to yourself. And then you and such witnesses would be subject to questioning by both the Deputy Attorney General and the board members. Although I, as the judge, am conducting the hearing, the board members will be the ones actually deciding your petition. So that's why it's important that we have all of their questions addressed. Today, the board is primarily concerned with your conduct while you've been on probation, as well as your rehabilitative efforts in general. So as I mentioned, it's not to relitigate past events. It's mainly focused on what you've done since then to rehabilitate yourself and how you've conducted yourself while on probation. Just as a reminder, the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package. So you don't need to repeat everything that's in there, but you're certainly welcome to highlight or emphasize any portions you deem appropriate, and also add any information you think that's not in there that would be helpful to the board. After the hearing today, the board will go into a closed session to deliberate on your petition. And so you won't be receiving a decision today, but you will receive it in the mail at some point in the future. Do you have any questions about any of that, Mr. Bishop?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you so much. Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Bell to present us with the case history and to introduce the petition packet, whichever order you like, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Mr. Bishop and members of the board. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. I'd like to first discuss a little bit of the discipline history with respect to the petitioner's license. The petitioner was issued an Associate Marriage and Family Therapist Registration Number AMFT 111755 and Associate Professional Clinical Counselor Registration Number APCC 6097 on or about August 1st, 2017. Now, the petitioner does have several criminal convictions which are of concern to the board from a perspective of public safety. The petitioner was convicted of a misdemeanor hit and run with injury in November of 2004. In 2007, the petitioner was convicted of a misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol greater than 0.08%. In February of 2007, and again in July of 2007, Mr. Bishop was convicted of misdemeanor battery on a spouse or cohabitant. And then, again in 2013, Mr. Bishop was convicted of a misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol. The statement of issues was filed on May 17, 2018, and the board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which was immediately revoked, stayed, and placed the petitioner on probation for 3 years with optional and standard terms and conditions effective February 21st, 2019. Those standard terms and conditions and optional terms and conditions were specifically designed to ensure safe practice based on those prior convictions. Now, the petitioner told his probation from February 27, 2019 to April 15, 2019. The projected end date of probation is only several months away, March 31st, 2022. At one point, the petitioner's probation was modified. His requirement for body fluid testing was reduced to bi-weekly to a minimum of 36 times per year. Now, as to compliance on probation, the petitioner has done well. He completed his psychological evaluation as required, July 29, 2019, and has been deemed safe to practice with no recommendations. He is fully compliant with his psychotherapy quarterly reports. He completed his remedial education on January 3rd, 2020, and is fully compliant as to the dependency support and body fluid testing conditions and all other standard terms and conditions. At this time, I'd like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, to the judge, and to the petitioner. Exhibit 1 is comprised of the case summary, the petition for early termination of probation, and all supporting documents, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, the notice of hearing, and the license certification. Judge, I'd move Exhibit 1 into evidence at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Bishop, do you have any objection to admission of Exhibit 1, which is the petition packet with the contents that Mr. Bell just summarized?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. No objection heard. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. Since the burden's on the petitioner, it's now his opportunity to address the board. I may or may not have questions for the petitioner based on the information contained in his packet and based on his testimony today.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. All right, Mr. Bishop, so now, as I promised earlier, now is your opportunity to testify on your own behalf if you'd like to. Is that your desire?
Yes, I've actually prepared something.
Okay, that's terrific. So let me just have you raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you solemnly state, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much, sir. And as I mentioned earlier on, you can assume the board has reviewed your petition packet, so you don't have to mention everything that's in there, but you're welcome to highlight information. You're welcome to add or supplement to it. And then once you're done with your presentation, Mr. Bell may have questions and the board members may have questions. So with that said, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Today represents another step on my path of recovery, personal development, and career development. Over the past 9+ years, I have radically changed the course of my life. I believe I have been able to turn my greatest liability into an asset and find a way to use my experience to be able to help others change. I acknowledge and take full responsibility for my early problematic behavior and appreciate this probation and how it has enabled me to continue my progress and evolution as both a clinician and an individual. I became sober on January 29th, 2012. I began regularly attending 12-step meetings, began being of service, and changed my career. Over the next few years, I moved towards working in the recovery field and eventually gained the education to become a substance abuse counselor in 2014. After encouragement from professors, therapists, colleagues, and friends in recovery, I enrolled in an MFT program and graduated in 2017, knowing the uphill battle I would face due to my history. I did this because I believe strongly in recovery and change, and I have lived it myself. In my recovery, I've gone to jail sober, I've gone through a divorce and the death of my former spouse sober. I was present with my father through his illness and death, and I was able to support my mother and family through that time. I've also remarried and become a father and devoted myself to my family and my career. I've weathered all these storms solidly in recovery and in sobriety. I accomplished this through hard work, introspection, and active involvement in a new sober community, and of course, 12-step. Prior to beginning probation, I had been sober and active in recovery for 7 years. After my initial application was denied in November 2017, I voluntarily enrolled in a formal recovery program, the Pacific Assistance Group, that incorporated random drug testing, group and individual therapy, and I continued with this program until I began probation in February 2019. After being placed on probation in February 2019, I've complied with all requirements of the board and have continued to grow and excel in this field and in general. I have learned volumes about my past, and this probation has helped me to refine my recovery, helped to reinforce and expand my support in my recovery community, and build additional coping skills, such as continued 12-step work, meditation, mindfulness, and strong connection to others. In addition, I have expunged my entire criminal record. I have also applied for and been approved for the licensure examination, and I've passed the licensure examination. I continue to work in the substance abuse recovery field and regularly attend 12-step meetings, both of which I plan to continue after probation. I feel blessed that my trials and tribulations have led me to a career that I love and that allows me to help others change their lives for the better. I would never do anything to jeopardize this new life in the future. Thank you again for the opportunity to have this hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bishop. And I will, after the questioning by the Deputy Attorney General and the board members, if anything else comes to mind that you want to add, I'll give you a final opportunity at the end to do that. Mr. Bell, do you have any questions for Mr. Bishop?
Yes. First, Mr. Bishop, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you?
Excellent. I do want to commend you on your efforts at making yourself a better person, for lack of a better words. But I do have to ask, your probation is set to end March 31st, 2022, just less than 5 months from now.
Yes.
Why do you want to end your probation now instead of just letting it run its course?
Well, originally I had applied for the early termination of probation, and then it got delayed, I think a couple of different times. Really, it boils down to finances. Between the testing and the therapy, both, the money piece is a big one, but then also the time commitment. It's really, it takes a lot. And I've got a 3-year-old daughter. Finding daycare or finding somebody to babysit while I go and test and things like that. It's just, the sooner I can end that, the better. Because the reality is that I'm going to continue to be sober. I have been sober. I will continue to be sober. And so the testing really, more than anything, is a large financial burden and then also a time burden.
Were there any other conditions other than the testing that you would find difficult to, burdensome to go forward with for the next 5 months?
Not particularly.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bell. All right, I'm going to turn to the board members now, this time starting from the A's again. Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Hi, yes, I do. Thank you for being here today. My question is, what are some things that you do regularly that are, we'll call them coping skills, but what are some things that you do? And then the second part is, who are 3 people in your life that are your support systems?
So for the first part of the question, things that I regularly do, they really all boil down to self-care. 12-step meetings, regardless of the probation status, 12-step meetings have been a part of my life for almost 10 years now. And so that's something that I regularly do. I volunteer in what in 12-step we call be of service wherever possible. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. I also regularly meditate and practice mindfulness. And so those things have been extremely helpful. And then also I like to believe a fairly robust spiritual life and religious life that's been key in my recovery. And then the second part of the question, the 3 people in my life, first would be family. My wife is a great support, but beyond family, my sponsor is an amazing resource, and I've been working with him now for probably close to 7 years. And then I also have several other people in recovery that I turn to. I have quite a few people that were from my cohort going through graduate school that I'm also in contact with. And I think one of the blessings of working in therapy is I get to work with a lot of therapists. And so, I get a lot of really good, solid feedback and advice on, how to live a better life, because that's what we do for a living.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Disposti, any questions for the petitioner?
Your Honor, welcome, Mr. Bishop. I just have a couple of questions, more than questions. If you can tell us more about the population that you work with at the moment, because obviously these convictions were previous to your licensure. It belongs to your past. So, it would be nice to see more about, to hear more about the populations that you work with, how this experience, if it plays any role with the work you do in terms of you refer to, or how does motivate the work you do every day. So I was just curious to know that. Thank you.
Absolutely. The population I work with currently, I work in substance abuse treatment. I have been working in substance abuse off and on since going back to about 2014 as a substance abuse counselor. I've worked both in nonprofit and for-profit facilities. Right now, I work in residential treatment, but I've also worked in pure mental health. I've also worked with people who have been convicted of sex crimes, and how it plays into my work, I don't necessarily actively disclose a lot of information about myself, but what I've found is that usually within a week or two, just because of my knowledge of, for instance, the 12 steps or the process of recovery and addiction, people tend to figure it out pretty quickly. And they know. And I think that really has been a blessing to build rapport and credibility with clients in a way that, all I can say is that I'm extremely thankful for. I think I said in my statement, turning something that was kind of a curse into something now that is a blessing and something that I can use not only, to continue my life in a better way, but also maybe even help other people.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Disposti. Mr. Ehrlich, any questions for the petitioner?
Good morning. Well, I guess, afternoon now. Mr. Bishop, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your testimony today. It looks like from your packet that they all have been, but have you had all your convictions expunged? It looked like you have. Yes, you have.
Yes, I have.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions. So again, appreciate your testimony and for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Hood.
All right, Ms. Friedman, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Very quick question. Good morning, Mr. Bishop. Thank you so much for telling us your story this morning. And I have just a very quick question. You said early on that you've taken your greatest liability and turned it into your greatest asset. Could you just expand on that for a second for me, please?
Well, I think that there was definitely a time, specifically before I became sober, where I felt cursed. I felt that there was absolutely nothing that I could do, and I was hopeless and I was helpless. And in being able to find a way out of that, I regained hope. And then the question became, now what do I do with this? Now that I don't have any obstacles in my way, I'm not shooting myself in the foot anymore. What can I do with this to not only better myself, but to be a productive member of society and to, maybe help my fellow man? And I feel that I've been able to find a way to do that. And so now I've taken something that once before I viewed as something I would want to get rid of at any cost, to now it's something that I rely on and I use and I appreciate. I don't want to repeat any of my past mistakes, but in some ways I am very glad that I went through them because of how it has shaped me and brought me to where I am.
That's great. It's a great answer. Thanks so much. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. All right, Ms. Herwick, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Thank you for being here, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you.
Mr. Huft, did you have any questions for the petitioner?
Clarification. Mr. Bishop, when was your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is January 29th of 2012. That was also, I think, the date of the last arrest. And in talking with my sponsor, the reason we settled on that date is because the arrest happened on the 29th, but the last time I actually drank was the 28th.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And let me look at my list here. Who's next? Mr. Jones, any questions?
The time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Ranasinghe, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
No questions. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Sovek, any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, actually, I do have a couple. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Bishop.
Hello, Mr. Sovek.
Oh, you can call me John if you'd like.
Thank you, John.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. I just need a little bit of clarification. We've been talking a lot about your sobriety.
Yes.
I do have a couple of questions about the actual battery charges. As far as you recall, were in those moments, were those things that were driven by substance use at that time, or were they separate from it?
No, 100% related to the substance abuse.
Okay. And do you feel that in your work of recovery, you have done anything to address whatever the motivator is inside of you might have been that would express in a rage that would lead to two separate battery charges?
Yes, I think so. I think that, not only, addressing the substance abuse problem, now I can use my prefrontal cortex and actually, think about consequences and make better decisions. But I've also, it was court ordered, but I did anger management work. And in the process of recovery from the substance abuse, there's a heavy focus on developing new coping skills. And in the personal work that I've done, understanding that anxiety and fear was driving a lot of my desire to drink, to alleviate that. In concert, it has also enabled me to find ways to manage that anxiety and fear so that it doesn't lead to anger. And so I'm able to cope with problems more at their root instead of worrying about them as they develop down the line.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your answer, and yay, prefrontal cortexes. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sovek. Ms. Strack, did you have any questions for the petitioner?
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then Ms. Willis, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
I do not, Your Honor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Great. And then Ms. Wong, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
I have one, before, it is relating to the packet, that has been submitted in the, as an exhibit. So I just want to let you know that, Mr. Bishop, that, there is the psych evaluation, in that packet.
Yes.
And so, so you're honored because it is, the confidential information. So I don't know how to proceed, but I just want to raise up, that, just be aware that, it's there because once it's, yeah. So
No,
I was aware of that and I submitted it deliberately.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Bishop, just so you understand, I just want you to know that, it is certainly possible for me, if you request it, I can seal that portion of the petition packet under a protective order. In other words, the board members will get to review it and consider it in their deliberations, but if there's ever a public records request made, then someone off the street can't just request it and read your confidential report. So I'm really glad you mentioned that, Ms. Wong. Mr. Bell, do you take any position in that regard? I mean, you wouldn't oppose a sealing or protective order for that portion of the petition packet, correct?
Not at all, Judge. In fact, if there's a motion to seal by one of the board members, I would join in that.
All right.
Seal the record.
And who's making that motion? I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
Justin Huft.
Oh, Mr. Huff, thank you very much. Mr. Bishop, I still have to ask you, but you don't have any opposition to us sealing or it to protect your confidentiality. It won't affect how the board considers it. They will be able to have full access to it. It's like I said, it's just because all of these records, once they leave here today, they are kept and anyone could come in to either the Office of Administrative Hearings or the Board of Behavioral Sciences and file a public record request. And certain information certainly deserves protection. So do you have any opposition to sealing the psychological evaluation portion of the packet?
No, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, then I'll make an oral order right now that it will be sealed, and I will also follow that up with a written protective order that will designate the specific pages of the packet, and that order will accompany all of the case documentation once it's returned from OAH to the board so that that's in there and will be protected. All right, Ms. Wong, thank you again. I'm really grateful to you for pointing that out. Any other questions you had about the case, though?
Well, we certainly want to protect Mr. Bishop's, personal information for sure, so now you know that, I am in compliance with the board's mandate, confidentiality. So Mr. Bishop, just a very, very quick question. I'm glad that, John actually asked you that question about the battery experience, yes, or that, those two incidents, and it's relating to, possibly, substance induced. So, and I'm wondering now in that sense, that, how, because how substance really change your coping mechanism and who really you are. And so I'm wondering, in your individual counseling, what has been the focus And what did you learn, from the, from the therapy sessions that actually, would help you be a better clinician?
Yeah, the individual therapy is largely focused on anxiety and depression, and somewhat in a historical sense. Also, early childhood trauma and experiences, and really developing an understanding, especially of like attachment and how those early experiences, or even, those not so early experiences, especially when I was drinking, how those impact me today. And now that I don't have this lens of alcoholism to look through, how can I cope and how can I manage symptoms better? How can I deal with things like anxiety better? How can I work on relationships better? And my therapist has been just absolutely amazing. And I fully intend to continue with her after probation. I've learned so much about myself. Excuse me. Most recently, we've been doing a lot of inner child work, and it's really been eye-opening for me. The idea that I still have these pieces of myself that have not been addressed from so long ago, and that now I can address them. And I don't have to resort to, you name it, any other type of coping skill, but I can address that now and here is really freeing. And I owe that to my therapist. I really do.
This is such a good experience, from your therapist, and that for you to be able to deal with, those deeper issues that will continue to, to affect you. And I'm sure that sounds like, from just learning about yourself, you're going to be able to transfer, those knowledge and understand that, the freeing experience and be able to benefit your clients. So thank you very much. I don't have any further question, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wong. Mr. Bell, any other questions occur to you since the board members have asked their questions?
No, Judge. The board members here are asking excellent questions. I have to once again say that Ms. Wong has stolen my thunder. I had one or two left, but she covered those. It's very well done.
I'm sensing a telepathic connection here. So good. Let me turn it back and make sure any other board members that may have supplemental questions, feel free to just state your name for the record and then launch your question. All right, I'm not seeing any hands and I'm not hearing anyone ask more questions, so that's great. Mr. Bishop, I did mention at the beginning that if there was anything you wanted to add at the end that we haven't yet talked about that you think might be useful for the board to know about in deciding your petition, I just wanted to give you a final opportunity. No compulsion. If you feel you've said everything, that's fine. Just want to give you a final opportunity.
The only thing I would say is thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Bishop. And then just out of abundance of caution, no additional documents or witnesses that you wanted to present today for the petition hearing?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you so much. Then that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed, the matter is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. And Mr. Dispasti, I'll turn it over to you to decide what we want to do break-wise.
Well, I'm just going to do another survey to see if we would like to take 10 minutes and go to the next, or perhaps in breaking now for 30 minutes lunch. What would you like to do? I mean, usually, we try to finish the open session and then go take a break, a bigger break, and go to closed session. But I realize it's 12:15. Some of you might be really, really hungry. Tell me, do you want to do a 10 minutes break and we continue, or you would like? Okay, I see some thumbs up. Okay. Okay, then let's take 10 minutes break. It's 12:20, and we can reconvene at 12:30 for our next petition. Thank you all.
Terrific. All right, I'll see you at 12:30. And then Ms. Litz, if you could just give me the end time and the page count for this transcript. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, I have the end time as 12:17
Okay.
and 25 pages.
Was that 35 you said?
I'm sorry, 25.
One is coming up. I believe we're missing a couple or two, but everyone is logging in. Yeah, we're all good. Good to go.
Terrific. And then I know that one of the board members, I forget who it was now, had a time constraint about leaving at 1. So obviously just do as you need to. Like you said, we'll figure it out. If just so you understand, Ms. Demertzis, if a board member doesn't hear all of the evidence in a particular petition, they won't be deliberating on that particular petition. But we have more than a quorum of the board present here, so we have enough people to make a binding decision. So we're all set. All right, then Ms. Leeds, are you ready to go on the record?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Let's go on the record. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. We're now going to review our last petition on the agenda today, and that is a petition for early termination of probation filed by Kelly Maria Demertzis. That's spelled, Kelly is K-E-L-I, Maria is M-A-R-I-A, and Demertzis is spelled D-E-M-E-R-T-Z-I-S. And Ms. Demertzis, I'm taking that off the documents. If you need to correct something down the road, you're welcome to once you testify. That's a spelling I have on the papers. This is OAH case number 2021-100-275, and the license number is AMFT 111595. My name is Wim van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this petition hearing today. Today's date is November 4th, 2021. It was noticed for hearing at 9 a.m., but as I mentioned, we were hearing multiple petitions this morning and afternoon. It's now approximately 12:33 p.m. We're conducting this matter via WebEx video and teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 11133. Next, I would love to have all the members of the board identify themselves for the record. Ms. Kitamura, if you could please assist us with a roll call again, I would so appreciate it.
Max Disposti,
I'm here.
Christina Wong,
Here.
Crystal Anthony, Ross Ehrlich,
Here.
Susan Friedman, Justin Huck,
Here.
Chris Jones, Kelly Ramasinghe,
Here.
John Sobek, Wendy Strout,
Here.
Yvette Willis, and board member Diana Herwick has already left, so we won't have to worry about her leaving in the middle of the testimony. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kitamura. Yes, I do find that we have a quorum of the board present. And next, may I have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Attorney General Kevin W. Bell, here on behalf of the Attorney General for the state of California.
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Bell. And next, the petitioner, I know we've been informally introduced. If you could state your full name for the record, I would appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Maria Demertzis.
All right, good afternoon to you, Ms. Demertzis. And I can see your video again. For some reason, it went away, but for the record, I can hear and see you now. Thank you so much. In terms of how we'll conduct the hearing today, first, we'll have the Deputy Attorney General introduce your petition packet and provide us with an orientation in this matter regarding the background and the procedural history. This is not to relitigate prior events. but it does give us some context for what brings us all here today. After that, you as the petitioner will have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why you believe your petition should be granted. You may also call other witnesses to testify if you like, and then you and any of those witnesses would be subject to questioning by the Deputy Attorney General and the board members. Reason for that is, although I'm the judge conducting the hearing, I will not be deciding your petition. It will actually be the board members who will decide your petition. So it's very important that we have all of their questions addressed. Today, the board is primarily concerned with your rehabilitative efforts since the original discipline was imposed and your conduct while you were on probation. Just to remind you as well, the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package, so it's not necessary to repeat everything that's in there, but you can certainly highlight or emphasize any portions you deem appropriate. And you can also add and supplement information that's not in there that you think might be relevant for the board to hear about. Once we're done today with the hearing, the board will go into a closed session to deliberate on your petition. So you won't be receiving a decision today, but you will receive a written decision in the mail at some point in the future. Mr. Mertzes, are there any questions that I can address right now before we get going with the substance of the hearing?
No, thank you, Your Honor. I was here since 9, so I had the opportunity to see the other petitioners. And so thank you for the support. No further questions. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to observe, so you're generally familiar with how the proceeding is conducted. So with that said, then I will turn it over to Mr. Bell to present the petition packet and the procedural history of the case in whichever order he desires.
Thank you, Judge, and good morning or afternoon, Mr. Mertzes, and board members. Thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. I would like to go over the petitioner's disciplinary history at this time. The petitioner was issued an Associate Marriage and Family Therapist Registration Number, AMFT 111595, on or about February 1st, 2019. On March 8th, 2016, the petitioner was convicted of misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol with a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or above. The circumstances of that offense were that on Christmas, December 2015, the respondent was driving her car while under the influence of alcohol. She crossed over the center lane and collided with a parked vehicle on the opposite side of the street. The petitioner submitted to a preliminary blood alcohol screening breath test, which showed that her blood alcohol content was over 0.25%. A statement of issues was filed by the Attorney General's office on March 29, 2018, and the board adopted a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which immediately revoked, stayed, and placed the petitioner's license on probation for 5 years with optional and standard terms and conditions based on the underlying offense, which were effective on February 1st, 2019. On February 5th, 2020, the therapy sessions were informally modified from weekly to every other week, and random drug and alcohol screening was reduced from a minimum of 52 times per year to 36 times per year. The petitioner is now requesting early termination of her probation. The psychotherapy, body fluid testing, dependency support, and reimbursement of costs have all been fully complied with. The petitioner is paid in full. As to the remedial education that was required, that was completed on January 20th, 2020. And a psychological evaluation was completed on August 16th, 2019. The petitioner has been deemed safe to practice with no additional recommendations. At this time, I'd like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, to the judge, and the petitioner. Exhibit 1 includes the case summary, the petition for early termination of probation, and all supporting documents, and the decision after rejection and disciplinary order, the notice of hearing, and the certification of license. At this time, Judge, I would move that into evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. And just out of abundance of caution, given the last matter, we don't have a psychological evaluation or report included in this packet, correct?
Let me see, one moment.
I thought we might as well take the bull by the horns and figure that out up front so that we...
I would have to go through the packet and look for that individually. I do note that the report from the probation monitor was that the evaluation was completed. Even if the evaluation is not contained in the packet, I would take that representation from the monitor as being true and correct.
I would agree with that. I'm scanning through it right now as we speak. I don't see one, but if any board member or anyone else sees it, please let me know and we will address it just as we did in the last matter. Just so you know, Mr. Mertes, I know you were on the line earlier on, but just we were always concerned about people's confidential psychological records and things like that. So I just out of abundance of caution wanted to check. But anyone can let me know at any point before we close the record today if there's anything that needs to be protected or sealed. We'll take care of that. Other than that, Mr. Mertes, do you have an objection to admitting Exhibit 1, which is the petition packet and all the contents that Mr. Bell just summarized?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, no objection heard. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. If I could, I did find a mention of the psychological evaluation within the packet itself. A letter from the probation analyst, Amanda Cantrell, dated August 16th, 2019, indicating that the psychological evaluation was received and reviewed. Whether or not that's actually included here within the packet, I'm not sure. I could continue looking for that if the court wants me to.
If you wouldn't mind, just take a quick look through as we continue. If you have a spare moment, I would appreciate that. I'm not concerned about there being a reference to this evaluation and that it was completed. I'm just concerned whether the actual evaluation is in there or not. I don't think it is, but we better just be careful with that. So
Sure.
That's the only question, and if you can just review, that would be great.
I'll do my best without dividing my attention. I do know that the board members of this particular board asked some very good questions, and I don't want to miss anything important that's in there.
No, and you know what, Mr. Bell, I don't want you either. That's a very fair point. So, you know, if we need time at the end while we're done, we need to take 5 minutes to all look at the packet and make sure, I'm happy to give you that time. Then I'd rather have your attention be on the testimony so that you can intelligently ask questions following up on it. So that's fine by me. Thank you for pointing that out. Anything else from you, Mr. Bell, before I turn it over to the petitioner?
Yes, there is one other thing, Judge. There is a letter of support that I don't know if it's been submitted to you. I know that the board members have been provided a copy of this, but I'm not sure that this got to the judge. I do show that my secretary was having issues uploading this. It's a letter from Olivia Harrington, who is Ms. Demertzis' sponsor. It's a relatively short letter in support. I could read that into the record now if that would help, or I can try to get this to you later. It won't take much time to read it into the record if you'd like.
I think that might be the safest course if it's short, because, and certainly follow up, you can still file it with us, and I'm happy to add it so we have the document, but just so that the board members, it sounds like they have the document in front of them, so it might not be a problem with deliberations, but for my benefit at least, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sure. From Olivia Harrington, dated October 28th, 2021, to the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Olivia Arrington, with an A, and I'm writing on behalf of Kelly Demertzis in regards to her upcoming hearing. As an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have had the privilege of working with Kelly as her sponsor since March of 2019. For the past 2.5 years, I've witnessed a major transformation in Kelly that I'm proud and grateful to continue to be a part of. Kelly's dedication and commitment to her sobriety are demonstrated by her continued willingness to participate, grow, and be of service as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Since beginning our work together, she has completed her first round of the 12 steps and is currently on her second, continuing to dive deeper into the work of looking at herself and facing her alcoholism. She has truly immersed herself in a program of action. She is attending meetings regularly and has taken several service commitments and even started her own meeting on Sunday nights that is thriving. In addition, she has begun sponsoring another woman in AA and helping others on their journeys of recovery. What began as a requirement by the Board of Behavioral Sciences has blossomed into a new way of life for Kelly. Her relationship with AA and sobriety has changed, and so in turn has her relationship with herself. Since connecting with me in 2.5 years, she has grown from a young woman who was ill-equipped to deal with her disease into a self-aware, consciously sober woman who has actively carried the message and strives to practice the 12 steps in all of her affairs. It is my sincere opinion and experience that Kelly's actions over the last 2.5 years demonstrate her deep sense of commitment, integrity to her recovery, and an ever-present willingness to show up as a positive force in her own life and the lives of those around her. Because of this, I can confidently recommend to the board that they consider Kelly's dedication to her recovery outside of board probation terms. Sincerely, Olivia Arrington.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bell. And Ms. Demertzis, this is probably largely formulaic, but I need to just ask you, since that was not before me, you don't have any objection to admission of that letter that Mr. Bell just read into the record, correct?
No, Your Honor, no objections. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And so, Mr. Bell, yes, if you could still file that with OAH, but that is part of the record now. It's been read into the record. And Mr. Desposti, do the board members have that letter already in your packets?
There, yes, we have it. Yes.
Okay, terrific. No, and it's just a double measure to make sure. So the record can reflect that the board members have it, so they will have it for their deliberations.
Yeah.
It's still helpful for me later on if I draft the decision on behalf of the board to have it, but the board members will have it. It's now both in the record orally as well as in the papers that they have. So we're all set there. Anything else, Mr. Bell?
No, Judge, I did want to say that I wanted to make sure that you had that before you. That was a letter that came in late after the petition packets had already been submitted to us and after they had been already uploaded for the court's consideration. So that letter, apparently we're having some issues trying to join that up with the appropriate packet. I wanted to make sure that that was in the record so that you would have it for your deliberations, Judge. Also, just in case if something happens and we're unable to submit that, I know the board members had it for their deliberations, but I think that's important that you have it as well.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And so, you know, and just logistically, you can file that as a separate, if it's an issue, you can file it as a separate document with OAH, and I can, when I prepared the petition packet and submit it to the board, that will all be added. So the record's clear. Even if you file it separate with OAH, I will include that with the rest of the documents. It will all be part of Exhibit 1 once it's submitted. It's already, the record is here, but just for clarification, what happens administratively. It'll all be added to Exhibit 1 and it's admitted and will be considered for deliberations.
Thank you, Judge. That's why I'm here. I'm here to dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
No, I so appreciate that. I so appreciate that. I just didn't want you to be concerned that if it's filed as a separate document with OAH, I can join them together behind the scenes. That's not a problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Since the burden is on the
right.
petitioner, it's now her opportunity to address the board. And again, Judge, I may have some questions for her based on her testimony and possibly some based on what she's submitted so far.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Bell. All right, Mr. Mertzis, I hope that we were talking very quickly. It's largely just logistics we're talking about. I want to make sure that that letter that was just read into the record, that I have a copy of it. So it's going to be something that will be helpful to me If the board members in their deliberations find it persuasive, it may be something I want to refer to in writing up the decision for them. So that's why I just want to make sure logistically I have it. But rest assured, it's already part of the record. It's been read into the record and the board members have it. So at this time, it's your opportunity to testify in support of your petition. Would you like to do so? And if so, I'll swear you in.
Yes, please, Your Honor.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier on, feel free to assume that the board members have read your petition packet, but you're welcome to emphasize portions of it. You're welcome to supplement or add any information you like. Once you're done with your testimony, the board members and the Deputy Attorney General may have questions for you. So, and then at the end, I'll give you another opportunity to add anything you might have missed the first time around. So with that said, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Deputy Attorney General Bell and board members here. I see this opportunity as a privilege and not a right in my career, and the opportunity to be here today to share my testimony and share, what this experience has been for me is an absolute privilege. So thank you for your time today. This past 2.5 years has been life-changing. I know I'm going to be going into year 3 potentially with my probation on February, in this upcoming February. And coming into my last hearing, I initially petitioned to get my registration. I lacked a lot of humility regarding my alcoholism. I was at a point in my life where I knew I had a problem with alcohol. I could do step 1, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable, but I didn't quite know what it would really entail to actually be a sustained person in recovery. And actually being in probation on the board's probation and being linked to Alcoholics Anonymous has been the biggest blessing of my life. And as I sit in front of you today, I put myself as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous first, therapist second. And that's how I have to conduct my life. If I want to live life, if I want to sustain a full life, to be an ethical therapist, if I want to be just a helpful family member, a person in the community in general, I have to consider my sobriety first. And that's what I am doing today. I have a home group. They're called Thumpers. They're like Big Book Thumpers. It's in Redwood City, and it's actually, their location is a little over half an hour from where I live. And I'm there every Tuesday night. No matter how late my workday goes, no matter how stressful my day is with clients, I'm accountable to that home group every Tuesday night. I have a service commitment there. With Zoom has been a great opportunity with Alcoholics Anonymous to be able to access meetings safely during the pandemic. But now that luckily we've had more meetings open in person, I try to get to as many in-person meetings as I can in order to talk to fellow alcoholics, to give my phone number to people who are struggling. My service is for Alcoholics Anonymous. And like I said, I prioritize that in my life. So I'm going to multiple meetings a week. I'm calling my sponsor frequently, 2 to 3 times a week, meeting with her in person. Right now it's about bi-weekly in person. Well, I see her more often than that because we go to the same home group, but meeting with her to talk one-on-one is more bi-weekly, other than the few times a week phone calls. On top of prioritizing Alcoholics Anonymous, I took an additional educational course just out of interest. I took an ethics course at San Jose City College within their drug and alcohol studies program during the pandemic. So just wanted to learn a little bit more. I thought that would be helpful for my career. As we know, during the pandemic, life has been extremely stressful, and I work in a community-based organization, a Medi-Cal-based organization in San Jose, where we're serving the lower income populations. And I work specifically in a dual diagnosis, substance use, and mental health program serving youth. And I'm actually the team lead in that program. So on top of my caseload, I'm also helping with case consultations. I'm helping with audits, I'm helping my supervisor. And so life has gotten pretty busy these past couple of years, and I've still been able to prioritize Alcoholics Anonymous in my recovery. And so despite all the stressors, I know I can call my sponsor. I know I can do my step work on a daily basis. I know I have my connection with my higher power. I have my support groups, and the obsession to drink has been lifted. I was not a daily drinker. At any point when I was drinking, I was someone who, when I did drink, I could not stop, but I was not a daily drinker. But that being said, I know right now, under oath, I cannot safely consume any amount of alcohol, and that is something that I will deal with for the rest of my life, and that is my priority. No matter what happens with the board probation, Alcoholics Anonymous will be the #1 priority in my life. And I mean, as I kind of sit before you and express that, I think that's my main point. The therapy has also been instrumental in looking at my core issues with why I chose to drink. I've struggled with anxiety my whole life, anxiety, self-esteem issues, self-doubt, and perfectionism. So I had to learn, with the support of a therapist, how to set boundaries, how to be kinder to myself, how to work on the core shame and guilt surrounding being arrested. You know, there was a huge event in my life, and I thank God every day that no one got hurt. And that is something that I will have to deal with the rest of my life. You know, it was a lot of shame was caused, but through the support of AA, the step work, and with my therapy, I've been able to look at some of those core issues to get to a point where, you know, I don't have to let that shame drag me down anymore. And as was mentioned in the letter that my sponsor Olivia provided, I started a meeting on Zoom during the pandemic. I started a big book study meeting on Sunday nights. I'm no longer the secretary, but I passed it along to someone else and I still attend it and continue to take on service commitments. So I am very, very confident that no matter what happens with the probation terms, I will continue to be an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've gone through the steps, and step 12 says that we carry this message to the fellow alcoholic, and I have a duty as an alcoholic to continue to spread the message and help the newcomer. And so that's not going to be something that I stray away from, no matter how busy life gets. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share for today. I apologize being a little scattered. It's definitely, you know, it can get a little emotional talking about these issues, but I appreciate the space.
Thank you, Ms. Demertzis. It's nerve-wracking for anyone to take the stand and talk in front of a whole board and a judge and everyone about these issues. So please don't feel that you've been scattered. And to the extent people have questions, they're going to have an opportunity to ask them if there's any clarification needed. Mr. Bell, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
What's your sobriety date, Ms. Demertzis?
So my sobriety date is March 30th, 2019. That is not the last time that I drank. I actually don't know the last time that I drank, but as the date I refer to, it's the date I started working with my sponsor. I do know that I did drink at some point during maybe late 2018. So I had a period of sustained sobriety for almost 3 years after my DUI. And since I wasn't working Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't working a program, I did have a brief relapse, I think on maybe one occasion. I honestly, I don't remember what day that was, but the date that I refer to is March 30th. So I can say March 30th, 2019. That would be my sobriety date.
Okay, and you have you drank since that date?
No.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that it, Mr. Bell? No further questions?
No further questions, Judge. I'm sorry.
All right. No. I just want to make sure. All right, Ms. Wong, any questions for the petitioner?
Thank you so much, Ms. Demertzis. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So, you know, I want to thank you for being very honest, you know, to share your journey of the recovery. And so, and I really like the statement, that, you talk about like you will always put sobriety, for, as your top priority. I want to just check in with you. When did you start drinking?
Start drinking?
Start.
College. Actually, so no one in my family is an alcoholic. And I've been exposed to alcohol in the home on a very casual basis. And so I didn't grow up really seeing binge drinking or anything like that. It was in college that I started drinking as a way to be social. And then eventually it was a way to kind of cope with anxiety. And then it escalated. And of course, the arrest happened. So college is when I actually first started drinking.
Good. So, so you did mention the word binge drinker. Because the type of the pattern of alcoholism that you talked about, I was about to throw that word to you, or, do you think that you are a binge drinker?
Yes, absolutely. I was not a daily drinker. And I think that's what made it a little bit harder for me to recognize that I am an alcoholic, because I didn't necessarily crave it or need it on a daily basis. But when I did, maybe on a special occasion, I would notice that it was very hard for me to stop. And which of course led to very dire consequences. And so with that, I completely surrendered that I cannot consume any amount of alcohol, and I do not use any mind-altering substances.
Right. So, and that is really, you wanna say something more?
Oh, no. Thank you.
Okay. So now we know binge drinkers, I think you are absolutely right on, because, it doesn't, really fit the profile that I need a drink every day, right? And so binge drinking are pretty sneaky. So, so what do you do, to really help yourself, monitor, those triggers? And I hear you mention about like some of the reason why you drink. And yet, sometimes when you use that as a way to cope with your anxiety, your social needs, it's there. It's every day. So how do you monitor that?
Right. Well, that's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. I call my sponsor anytime. I mean, I'm calling her pretty frequently anytime that I'm feeling stressed or I'm confronted by something that I feel like is weighing on me. I talk to her through and I do step work. For example, step 10 is continue to take I'm sorry. I'm wording it incorrectly. Step 10 is basically when you're taking a daily inventory. And so if something is upsetting you, you're feeling stressed or anxious about something, you're writing down the cause, my part, what I did and what I could have done differently. And so I'm writing things out. I'm talking about it. On a more individual level, I'm doing deep breathing, I'm exercising, I'm journaling, ways to externalize some of those emotions. A lot of the anxiety has gone away as a result of not drinking and working with a therapist, and also just understanding that my perfectionistic tendencies are unattainable. I am a human too, and I have my limits and my boundaries, and that has also helped a lot with stress and anxiety. And to be honest, everyone who is close to me in my life that I have contact with knows that I'm an alcoholic, and that I have no shame around that. I talk about it openly. As a way to help others if needed, but that also takes away a lot of anxiety, because when I enter social situations, I'm not worried about how others are going to perceive me or am I going to be triggered. I am open about who I am.
That's some really big steps, in your age, and so so I have one last question. So, I'm glad that, that you are doing so much, right? And I'm sure that it's very consistent, with, your tendency to be to be perfectionist, because it's like when you do things, I know that you need to do 150% and need to be perfect. So, which is very consistent of who you are now. And yet, I know you're working on your perfectionism. So do you have an image about how your life is going to be, say like 5 years later? It will be post-COVID, all those things will be gone. You're probably very likely not going to be, on probation. So how would your life be like? or maybe, how would you even monitor, your sobriety and alcoholism, life and everything? Do you have an image about that?
Yeah, for 5 years from now. Well, hopefully I'll be licensed as a marriage and family therapist within the next 5 years. But aside from that, more importantly, I still see myself as being an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's been my spiritual fulfillment. It's been what I do at the end of the day. Being in this job, as we all know, this career can be really heavy, draining, a lot of vicarious trauma, and being able to sit in a room full of other alcoholics and be vulnerable and talk about what's going on is something that it fulfills me spiritually. And so I continue to see myself, no matter, if I'm moving all around California, I'm not sure. I'll continue to be an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. As far as, family system goes, I actually am in a relationship with someone who's a licensed social worker. And so I've been able to communicate with him in terms of understanding the stresses that come with this field. I don't know where a lot of my life holds, but I know that by the grace of God, if I continue to be an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I will be sober if I'm participating.
Absolutely. I just want to really know about, what's going to be the priority in your life. And it's very, very assuring that knowing that, you will still, in 5 years or maybe even more, then, you have your support and yet you will be continuing, this journey of sobriety. So thank you very, very much. So I have no more question, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Ms. Willis, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Ms. Wong kindly asked what I was thinking about asking. Mine was similar about balance in your life, but when you talked about your exercising and that, it really cleared it up for me. I feel like you really have identified the issue and the binge drinking, and I get the feeling that you've kind of forgiven yourself. I think you say that you have. I can kind of tell that maybe you still feel like there's a lot of work to be done. So that's good too. But I also think that, giving yourself a little bit of grace and will help a lot. But thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
All right, Ms. Strack, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Just want to thank you for your honesty and vulnerability with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have Mr. Sovek next. Do you have any questions?
Much.
All right. Mr. Ranasinghe, do you have any questions?
Mr. Mertzis, I do have just a couple quick questions. You said you're in your petition, you're on 3 random tests a month at this point?
Correct. I was on the 5 random tests a month, and then the in-house modification of terms happens, so 3 times a month.
Okay. And if they random test you on the weekend, you said you had to drive half an hour to an urgent care facility?
That was pre-pandemic. Now I'm able to do the fluid testing virtually as allowed by the board, but pre-pandemic, yes, because on the weekends they didn't have as many clinics open in my area for testing, so I would have to drive to Fremont, which was like 35-40 minutes to get there on the weekends if I was tested.
Yeah, imagine that would mess up your whole day. So, Okay, right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ranasinghe. I think Mr. Jones is next. Do you have any questions?
Find my mute button. No, board member Wong did a great job of asking the right questions. So I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, Judge, I can interject
Yes.
real quick.
Sure.
It's not just me who notices Ms. Wong's questions. It's not just me.
No, apparently not. She has telepathic abilities beyond just you. It's so yeah. I'm amazed. I've always been amazed by her, but now I'm even more amazed. So there you go. All right, let's see, Mr. Huft, do you have any questions for the petitioner?
I do. I have a couple. So the first one, you started your work in about 2017 at Gardner, is that correct?
It's a bachelor's level position because I wasn't granted my AMFT number until 2019. And so they had to demote me to mental health specialist. And then I was promoted to mental health therapist once I was granted my number in February 2019.
Great. And it looks like your job eval, you're getting better every time, which is wonderful. I'm wondering if you can talk specifically about how your work changed with clients once you started doing 12 steps and maintaining sobriety.
It's a great question. Thank you for that question. Being able to manage stress, I think it's one of those things that I need to look out within myself because I go into work and of course on the outwards, I'm meeting with the clients, I'm showing empathy and unconditional positive regard, but noticing myself being a little bit more present when I'm able to check out my own internal triggers and be able to do work behind the scenes when it comes into like doing the 12 steps. For example, I can give you a little insight to how the step work has worked in the work setting. The other week, I was having some conflict coming up with a coworker, and by conflict is I felt our consultation styles and communication styles were not matching, and I was concerned on how that would benefit our shared client. And I was able to utilize the step work to write out my concerns related to this person in order to check out my own internal kind of struggles and stressors and to be able to pray on it and let it go and be more present with my coworker. In regards to my clients, I think there's this level of empathy and understanding that comes with knowing myself as an alcoholic and work through the steps and continue to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can sit with the youth because I work primarily with youth who are struggling with, high levels of cannabis abuse, alcohol use, pill use, and just sit and meet them where they're at and that non-judgment and to be that person in their life that isn't going to be their parent, their probation officer, their teacher. I'm just someone in their life that can hear them out. And I just believe I've been able to be more present with clients since doing a lot of this internal work that comes with 12 step. I continue. It's a growth process. It's a continual process.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very insightful. My next question is that you are, unless I'm doing the math wrong, you're asking for probation to end almost like 50% of it off, right? Like 2.5 years.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. So it's
Roughly
a 5-year
2 years
probation.
early or so, and I think that this you asked 2 years into it, I believe. I think you very clearly identified how the probation has helped your personal growth and professional growth. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how ending the probation early would benefit you and how it might be a problem.
Thank you. In terms of benefit, as was kind of mentioned with the previous probationers, it's a time commitment and it's a financial commitment at this time. I work in a Medi-Cal-based, community-based organization, and unfortunately, the pay is pretty low. I'm not licensed yet, and so considering the pay that comes with, or the financial costs that come with the fluid testing and the therapy, finding a therapist that would be willing to work with me and provide quarterly reports was really difficult. So I had to kind of just accrue the costs and just hope it would work out financially. So financially, and then just time commitment that it takes out of my day where I could be with clients, I could be attending trainings, having to take care of fluid testing. Those are the two main ones. Like I had mentioned, Alcoholics Anonymous will still continue to be part of my routine. My supervisor knows where I'm at after work when I'm going to meetings in terms of establishing boundaries. As far as concerns, I honestly, confidently don't feel like there's any concerns regarding coming off of the probation terms because I do have a plan in place in terms of my support. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Ms. Herwick is not here for this petition, so that takes us to Ms. Friedman. Do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Very, very, very quick and kind of silly question, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. It's really important for us to hear that. You mentioned, though, that one of the things that you were doing, and I think you mentioned that you have a separate AA group called the Thumpers, and you listed something called Thumpers Big Book Study, and I'm just curious what that is.
Yeah, so Thumpers, thank you for the question. Thumpers is my home group. That's the name of my home group that I go to on Redwood City Tuesday nights. And they are a group of members of Alcoholics Anonymous who are very into action. And that's why I continue to attend that meeting, despite it, being a little bit out of the way driving wise and it being late night on a work day. They are very much into the action of what it is to be an alcoholic. Coming into the program, I knew that this wasn't a self-care, self-help type of program. My mission at the end of the day is to be in service to other people. And so they carry that message. So I'm very dedicated to that group. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I think so. I think so. Thank you.
You're welcome to follow up if there's something, Ms. Friedman, was there a particular aspect you wanted to know about, or does it address your question?
Well, I was just wondering what the study was.
Oh, so if I understand correctly, we go through the big book paragraph by paragraph each week and spend an hour and 15 minutes just dissecting each paragraph of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and talking about how it applies to our lives. And so that is what the type of meeting is, as opposed to other meetings where you may hear a speaker and then comment on the speaker. This one is we delve into the book. And the meeting that I started on Zoom on Sunday nights is also a book study. So we also go paragraph by paragraph into the big book, dissecting each section to look at how it applies to our own lives.
That's really great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ehrlich, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for your testimony today, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Disposti, do you have any questions?
And thank you, Your Honor. And thank you for your testimony today. Thank you so much.
And then I think that leaves us with Ms. Anthony. Do you have any questions for the petitioner?
No questions. Thank you for being here today.
All right, thank you so much. Let me circle back to Mr. Bell, see if he has any questions for you in light of the other questions.
Very much. And thank you for your presentation here, Mr. Mertes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And let me just double check with the other board members. Has another question occurred to anyone else? If so, just state your name and launch into the question. All right, I'm not seeing any hands or anyone's asking anything further, so I think that wraps up the board questioning. And Mr. Mertes, I promised you at the end, if there was anything we haven't yet talked about. I know it's overwhelming sitting here and talking, testifying, so sometimes things slip your mind. Is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you think is very important for the board to know about before they decide your petition?
I think I was able to communicate all that I wanted to today. I just wanted to extend a big thank you again, Your Honor, and to Deputy Attorney General Bell and to all the board members for your time today. Like I mentioned, this is definitely a privilege to be here today. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Just to make sure there was no additional witnesses or documents that you wanted to present in support of the petition, correct, Mr. Mertes?
No, Your Honor.
All right, just checking to make sure there was nothing we forgot to talk about. Mr. Bell, I don't know if you've had a second to look. I haven't located any psychological evaluation. Mr. Mertes, you didn't submit one, correct? So it would just have come from the board if there was one, right?
No, Your Honor. I only submitted the letter from the probation analyst.
Okay, and And Mr. Bell, did you need some additional time to review it? I didn't see it.
No, I was able to multitask a little bit. I did not miss anything any of the board members said, which again, everybody, including Ms. Wong, had some very good questions there, but there is no psychological evaluation that was contained therein.
All right. No, thank you so much again for double checking. Again, I just wanted to err on the side of caution, and since that came up in the last matter, I wanted to make sure we addressed it. All right. Thank you so much again, Ms. Demertzis. Really appreciate your time and testimony. This concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed. The case is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. And since this is our final petition, then pursuant to section 111263 of the Government Code, the board will meet in a closed session for discussion and to take action on disciplinary matters, including the petitions heard today. I'll defer to Mr. Desposti as to whether there's a break before that or not. I'll turn it over to you, sir. Thank you.
Well, since we have been talking about self-care, I think maybe we deserve a nice lunch, and maybe we should get back at 2 o'clock if there are any objections. Is that okay?